The Voxari war machines march through Nexus Prime, their metallic feet crushing the once pristine streets of the Galactic Federation's capital. Massive humanoid robots tower over crumbling buildings, their weapon systems obliterating the Federation's overwhelmed defenders. In the grand chambers of the Federation Council, panic spreads as reports of the devastation flood in. "Activate the emergency protocol," commands High Counselor ZYX, her voice trembling. "Send out the distress signal to all known sentient species. We need help, or Nexus Prime will fall." As the call echoes across the galaxy, it reaches an unexpected recipient: Earth, a newly discovered death world on the fringes of known space. The United Earth Defense Force intercepts the message, and within hours their flagship, the UES Thunderchild, emerges from hyperspace above the besieged planet. Commander Jeffrey Thompson stands on the bridge, his scarred face a testament to Earth's brutal planetary wars. He turns to the alien beside him, a Voxari defector named Bryn, who serves as their liaison officer. "Brief me on the situation," Thompson orders, his voice gruff and commanding. Bryn's compound eyes widen as he explains. The Voxari Empire's robotic armies have overwhelmed Nexus Prime's defenses. All known species rely solely on machine warriors due to the extreme dangers of modern combat. Thompson's lips curl into a grim smile. "Well, Bryn, you're about to see something new. Humans still fight in person." The alien's mandibles click in shock as Thompson activates the ship's intercom. "UEDF, prepare for atmospheric drop. We're going in hot." In the Thunderchild's launch bay, rows of soldiers don their basic power armor, a far cry from the advanced war machines they're about to face. They check their handheld weapons, a mix of ballistic firearms and energy-based arms, before climbing into atmospheric entry pods. Thompson joins his troops, sealing his helmet. "Remember your training. These robots aren't ready for what we're bringing to the fight." The pods eject from the Thunderchild, streaking through Nexus Prime's atmosphere like meteors. They crash into the city's outskirts, and as the smoke clears, UEDF soldiers emerge, immediately engaging the nearest Voxari war machines. The robots, their programming optimized for battling other machines, struggle to adapt to the humans' unpredictable movements and aggressive tactics. A soldier ducks under a robot's massive arm, planting an electromagnetic pulse device on its leg joint. The EMP detonates, disabling the machine's shields and leaving it vulnerable. "Now!" Thompson shouts, leading a charge against the staggering robot. His troops swarm the metal giant, using their enhanced strength to tear into exposed circuitry and vital components. Across the battlefield, similar scenes unfold. Human soldiers grapple with war machines 10 times their size, using explosives, EMPs, and sheer physical prowess to bring them down. A UEDF sniper targets the optical sensors of a Voxari command unit, blinding it and causing chaos in the enemy's ranks. Federation observers watch in awe from their secure bunkers. "By the cosmic winds," one whispers, "these Deathworlders are turning the tide with their bare hands." News of the humans' effectiveness spreads rapidly through the Federation's communication channels. Inspired by the Earth Warriors' ferocity, the remaining Federation forces launch a counteroffensive, catching the Voxari robots in a pincer movement. As the battle for Nexus Prime rages on, the Voxari Empire's seemingly unstoppable advance begins to falter. Their robotic armies, designed to fight other machines, find themselves outmaneuvered by the adaptability and raw determination of human soldiers. Commander Thompson, standing atop a defeated war machine, surveys the changing tide of battle. He activates his comm link to the Thunderchild. "Send word to Earth. The fight's just beginning, and we need every soldier we can get. It's time to show the galaxy what humans are made of." The echoes of Commander Thompson's words reverberated through the Thunderchild as the message was relayed to Earth. But there was no time to wait for reinforcements. The battle for Nexus Prime raged on, with human soldiers pushing deeper into Voxry-controlled territory. Thompson led his troops through the debris-strewn streets, the acrid smell of burning metal filling the air. The UEDF soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their power armor allowing them to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease. Delta Squad, flank left. Thompson barked into his comm. Bravo, I want those EMP charges ready. As if to answer his commands, a massive Voxari war machine rounded the corner, its weapon systems whirring to life. Without hesitation, Thompson's soldiers sprang into action. A barrage of EMP charges struck the robot's legs, causing it to stumble. In seconds, the humans swarmed over the metallic giant, tearing into its exposed circuitry with their bare hands. From his vantage point in the Federation's orbital command center, Admiral Zorn watched the unfolding battle with growing fascination. His compound eyes widened as he observed the humans dismantling yet another Voxari unit. "Incredible," he murmured, mandibles clicking in excitement. "Run another analysis on their combat data." His staff worked feverishly, holographic displays flickering with streams of information. When the results appeared, Admiral Zorn couldn't believe his eyes. These efficiency ratings, they're off the charts. Our best robotic units don't even come close. Making a split-second decision, Admiral Zorn opened a direct communication channel to the surface. "Commander Thompson, this is Admiral Zorn of the Galactic Federation. I request your immediate presence aboard our flagship for an urgent meeting." Thompson paused, his hand hovering over a fallen Voxari robot. He glanced at Major Sarah Mason, his second-in-command. "Major, you have command. Keep pushing forward. I'll be back as soon as I can." As Thompson's shuttle ascended towards the Federation flagship, the Voxari unleashed their latest weapon. Swarms of glittering nano-drones filled the air, descending upon the Federation's robotic defenders like a metallic plague. Where they touched, metal dissolved into dust. Major Mason watched in horror as entire squads of Federation robots crumbled before her eyes. She keyed her comm, her voice steady despite the chaos. "All units, fall back to defensive positions." As her troops retreated, Mason's mind raced. The nano-drone seemed unstoppable, but there had to be a weakness. Her eyes fell on a nearby drop pod, its heat shield still glistening with protective fluid. "That's it," she breathed. "All units, listen up. Coat yourselves in drop pod heat shield fluid. Move." The human soldiers rushed to obey, slathering themselves in the viscous liquid. As the swarms approached, Mason held her breath. The nano-drones enveloped the humans, but to her relief, they passed harmlessly over the coated soldiers. "It worked," she shouted. "Push forward and take out those control nodes." Meanwhile, aboard the Federation flagship, Thompson stood face to face with Admiral Zorn. The alien commander's exoskeleton gleamed in the ship's harsh lighting as he spoke. "Commander, your forces have demonstrated extraordinary capabilities. I propose an alliance. Human soldiers integrated into all Federation military units." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "And what does Earth get out of this arrangement?" Before Zorn could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Voxari assault force incoming. All hands to battle stations." Thompson and Zorn rushed to the bridge, arriving just in time to see the first Voxari boarders breach the hull. The ship's robotic defenders engaged, but they were quickly overwhelmed. "Your robots can't handle this," Thompson growled. He activated his comm link. "Thunderchild, I need a platoon of UEDF troops on this ship now." As they waited for reinforcements, Thompson turned to Admiral Zorn. "I hope you're ready to see what humans can really do in close quarters." The sounds of battle drew closer. Thompson checked his sidearm and took up a defensive position near the bridge entrance. He could hear the Voxari boarders approaching, their metallic footsteps echoing through the corridors. "Here they come," he muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. The first Voxari unit appeared in the doorway, its sensors scanning the room. Thompson didn't hesitate. He fired, his energy weapon punching through the robot's optical sensors. As more Voxari poured into the bridge, Thompson found himself fighting alongside the Federation's leadership. He moved with practiced efficiency, each action deliberate and deadly. A kick here to expose a weak joint, a well-placed shot there to disable a weapon system. Just when it seemed they might be overwhelmed, the distinctive sound of UEDF drop pods impacting the ship's hull resonated through the structure. Moments later, human soldiers burst onto the bridge, their armor still smoking from atmospheric entry. "Took you long enough," Thompson called out, a grim smile on his face. "Let's show the Admiral what we can do." As the human soldiers engaged the Voxari boarders, Admiral Zorn watched in awe. The fate of the war, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And at the center of it all stood Commander Thompson, a human from a distant Deathworld, ready to turn the tide of battle once again. The human soldiers swarmed onto the bridge, their armor still radiating heat from their rapid descent. Thompson nodded to his troops, a grim smile playing across his lips. "Let's show the Admiral what we can do." As the UEDF engaged the Voxari boarders, a burst of static crackled through Thompson's comm link. He raised a hand to his ear, straining to hear through the interference. "Commander Thompson, do you copy?" The voice was familiar, tinged with urgency. "Major Mason? Report," Thompson barked, ducking behind a console as energy bolts sizzled overhead. "Sir, we repelled the nanodrone swarms." Mason's voice came through clearer now. "We're pushing towards the Voxari's primary command center on the surface." Thompson's mind raced, quickly formulating a strategy. "Excellent work, Major. Continue the assault on their ground command. We'll handle things up here." He turned to Admiral Zorn, who was watching the battle unfold with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "Admiral, we need to secure the flagship. Where's your auxiliary control room?" Zorn's mandibles clicked nervously. "Level 47, Section C, but the Voxari dash." "We'll get you there," Thompson cut him off, gesturing to a group of his soldiers. "You 5 with me. The rest of you, secure this deck and push the Voxari back to their entry points." As they moved through the ship's corridors, the sounds of battle echoed all around them. Thompson's comm crackled again. "Commander, Sergeant Hawkins reporting. We've touched down in the main hangar bay. Hawkins, take your team and secure the engine room. It's a critical weak point." "Understood. Sir, we're on it." They rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Voxari infiltrator units. The sleek, humanoid robots raised their weapons in unison. "Down!" Thompson shouted, pushing Admiral Zorn to the floor as energy beams seared the air above them. The human soldiers returned fire, their shots pinging off the robot's armor. Thompson rolled to his feet, assessing the situation in a split second. The corridor was too narrow for conventional tactics. He charged forward, closing the distance before the Voxari could adjust their aim. Thompson slammed into the lead robot, using his augmented strength to drive it back into its comrades. The machine stumbled, their programming struggling to adapt to such an unconventional attack. Thompson seized the moment of confusion. He grabbed the robot's arm, twisting it with enough force to tear it from its socket. Using the severed limb as a makeshift club, he smashed it into the optical sensors of another Voxari unit. His soldiers followed his lead, engaging the robots in close combat. The corridor became a chaotic melee of flesh and metal. Thompson moved with fluid grace, each motion precise and devastating. He ducked under a robotic arm, planted an explosive charge on its chest, then kicked it back into its comrades. The resulting explosion sent shrapnel tearing through the remaining Voxari units. In moments, the infiltrator squad lay in sparking ruins at their feet. Thompson turned to see Admiral Zorn staring at him, compound eyes wide with astonishment. "By the cosmic winds," Zorn breathed. "I've never seen anything like that." Thompson allowed himself a small smile. "That's why you called us, Admiral. Now, let's get you to that control room." As they resumed their journey through the ship, Thompson's comm link crackled once more. "Commander, we've got a problem," Sergeant Hawkins' voice came through, tight with tension. "The Voxari have deployed a massive warship. It's on an intercept course with us." Thompson's expression resolute. "How massive are we talking, Sergeant?" It's like nothing I've ever seen, so they're calling it the Annihilator. Our scans show it's capable of obliterating this entire flagship with a single shot from its main cannon." Thompson's mind raced, considering their options. They were outgunned, outmanned, and rapidly running out of time. But he'd be damned if he'd let the Voxari win without a fight. "Hawkins, secure that engine room at all costs. I'm heading to the weapons lab. There's a prototype that might just even the odds." He turned to his squad. "Change of plans. Get the Admiral to the auxiliary control room. I'm going after that weapon." As Thompson sprinted through the corridors, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Annihilator was closing in, its massive form visible through the flagship's viewports. He could hear the sounds of battle all around him. The clash of metal on metal, the sharp report of energy weapons, the shouts and screams of combatants both human and alien. He rounded a corner and found himself face to face with another group of Voxari boarders. Without breaking stride, Thompson launched himself into their midst. He moved like a force of nature, each strike precise and devastating. Robotic limbs flew as he tore through their ranks, his augmented strength and combat training proving more than a match for their cold algorithms. As the last Voxari unit fell, sparking and twitching, Thompson caught sight of the weapons lab entrance. He sprinted forward, keying in the access code with fingers that never trembled, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The door slid open, revealing a cavernous room filled with experimental weaponry. And there in the center stood their last hope, a massive cannon that hummed with hardly restrained energy. Thompson's comm crackled to life once more. "Commander," Admiral Zorn's voice came through, tense but controlled. "The Annihilator is in firing range. Whatever you're planning, it needs to happen now." Thompson gripped the prototype weapon, its weight reassuring in his hands. He allowed himself a grim smile as he hefted it onto his shoulder. "Don't worry, Admiral," he said, striding towards the nearest airlock. "The fight's just getting started." Thompson charged down the corridor, the prototype weapon hefted on his shoulder. Its weight was substantial, but his augmented muscles handled the burden with ease. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with a squad of Voxari combat units unlike any he had encountered before. These robots moved with an uncanny fluidity, their metallic bodies mimicking human stances and combat techniques. Thompson's eyes narrowed as he assessed the new threat. The Voxari had clearly been learning, adapting their AI to counter human tactics. "Hawkins, Mason, be advised," Thompson barked into his comm. "The Voxari are fielding advanced units with improved combat algorithms. Adjust your strategies accordingly." Without waiting for a response, Thompson engaged the enemy. He ducked under a swinging metal arm, using the prototype weapon as a makeshift club to smash the robot's optical sensors. But as he spun to face the next opponent, he found the Voxari unit anticipating his move, countering with a swift kick to his midsection. Thompson grunted as he absorbed the impact, his armor dispersing most of the force. He rolled with the momentum, coming up in a crouch and firing a burst from his sidearm. The energy bolts found their mark, but the Voxari's armor was tougher than expected. As the battle raged, Thompson's team arrived, providing crucial support. But the advanced Voxari units proved formidable opponents. Private Chun went down, a metal fist crushing his helmet. Corporal Rodriguez screamed as a Voxari laser sliced through her leg armor. Thompson gritted his teeth, his mind racing to adapt to the new threat. "Focus fire on their joints," he shouted, demonstrating by targeting the knee actuators of the nearest robot. The concentrated fire paid off, and the Voxari unit collapsed. Slowly, methodically, they pushed forward. Thompson's superior tactical flexibility allowed them to overcome the Voxari's raw computing power. They improvised, using the environment to their advantage, toppling equipment to create obstacles and using maintenance panels as impromptu shields. Finally, they reached the experimental weapons lab. The door slid open to reveal a scene of controlled chaos. Amidst the scattered equipment and pulsing energy readouts stood a woman in a lab coat, her hands flying over a control panel. "Dr. Voss, I presume," Thompson said, lowering his weapon. The woman turned, her eyes widening at the sight of the battered human soldiers. "Commander Thompson, thank the stars you're here. We don't have much time." Dr. Hilaire Voss quickly briefed Thompson on the prototype weapon he carried, a quantum destabilizer capable of disrupting the molecular structure of the Annihilator's hull. As she spoke, Thompson's heart sank. The weapon was untested and required manual targeting from close range. "It's a suicide mission," he said quietly. Dr. Voss nodded, her face grim. "I'm afraid so, but it's our only chance against the Annihilator." Thompson's calm crackled to life. "Commander," Major Mason's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of intense combat. "We've breached the Voxari Command Center on Nexus Prime. Heavy resistance from elite guard units. We've identified the central control node, but it's heavily shielded." "Find a way to bring that shield down, Major," Thompson ordered. "We need that command center neutralized." As Thompson coordinated with Mason, another transmission came through. "Sir, Sergeant Hawkins reporting. We've secured the bridge. Admiral Zorn is back in control of the ship systems." "Good work, Sergeant. Stand by for further orders." Thompson turned back to Dr. Voss. "We need to get to the hangar. Can you operate this weapon?" "I designed it, Commander. I'm coming with you." Thompson nodded, not wasting time arguing. "Let's move out." As they made their way to the hangar, Admiral Zorn's voice came over the ship-wide comm system. "All Federation ships, this is Admiral Zorn. Engage the Annihilator. By Commander Thompson time to deploy the quantum destabilizer. May the cosmic winds be with us all." They reached the hangar to find it in chaos. Voxari boarding parties clashed with Federation defenders amidst the wreckage of destroyed shuttles. Thompson led his team through the melee, fighting their way to a sleek, dark vessel tucked away in a corner. "Federation stealth shuttle," Dr. Voss explained as they boarded. "It should get us close to the Annihilator undetected." As Thompson powered up the shuttle systems, he watched through the view screen as the Federation fleet engaged a massive Voxari warship. The Annihilator dwarfed the other vessels, its hull dripping with weapon emplacements. Federation ships exploded in silent bursts of light as they sacrificed themselves to slow the behemoth's advance. "Shuttle 37 Alpha, you are clear for launch," the flight controller's voice crackled over the comm. "Godspeed, Commander." The shuttle shot out of the hangar, cloaking systems engaging as they entered the chaotic space battle. Thompson piloted the craft with precision, weaving through debris fields and energy blasts as they approached the Annihilator. "There," Dr. Voss pointed to a section of the massive ship's hull. "That's our best shot at penetrating their defenses." Thompson brought the shuttle in close, using the Annihilator's own bulk to shield them from its point defense systems. "How long to charge the destabilizer?" he asked. "Several minutes," Dr. Voss replied, her fingers dancing over the weapon's controls. "But we'll be exposed the entire time." Thompson made a quick decision. "Rodriguez, Chun, you're with me. We'll create a diversion. Draw their internal defenses away from this position. Dr. Voss, you have command of the shuttle. The rest of you, protect her at all costs. As Thompson prepared to exit the shuttle, his comm crackled once more. Commander, Major Mason's voice came through, tight with tension. We've overloaded the command center's shields. We're pushing towards the central node now, but resistance is heavy. These Voxari guards, they're like nothing we've faced before. Keep pushing, Major, Thompson replied. We're about to hit them where it hurts. With a nod to his team, Thompson opened the shuttle's airlock. They leapt out into the void, magnetic boots securing them to the Annihilator's hull. As they moved towards a nearby access hatch, Thompson could see the Federation's last ships falling to the massive warship's onslaught. Time was running out. The fate of the stars now rested on their ability to activate the quantum destabilizer before the Annihilator could bring its main cannon to bear on the Federation flagship. Thompson steeled himself for the fight ahead, knowing that every second they bought could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. Annihilation and humanity's survival. With a deep breath, he stepped through the airlock. The vacuum of space enveloped Thompson as he propelled himself towards the Annihilator's hull. Behind him, Dr. Voss and the remaining team readied the quantum destabilizer. Suddenly, a blinding surge of energy erupted from the weapon, engulfing the shuttle in a crackling field of destabilizing particles. "No!" Thompson shouted, his voice lost in the void. He watched in horror as the quantum field expanded, consuming both the shuttle and the section of the Annihilator's hull they had targeted. In that split second, Thompson made a decision that would alter the course of the battle. He activated his suit's emergency thrusters, launching himself directly into the destabilizing field. The molecular structure of his armor began to break down, but it bought him just enough time to breach the disintegrating hull of the Annihilator. Thompson tumbled through the opening, his momentum carrying him into a corridor filled with sparking machinery and malfunctioning robots. Alarms blared as the ship's systems registered the catastrophic hull breach. He scrambled to his feet, fighting against the ship's fluctuating gravity. "Thompson to all units," he gasped into his comm. "The destabilizer activated prematurely. I'm inside the Annihilator, Dr. Voss and the shuttle team." He paused, unable to finish the sentence. "I'm going to complete the mission." As Thompson fought his way through the chaos of the dying ship, his comm crackled with updates from the other fronts. Major Mason's voice cut through the static. "Commander, we've taken down the central control node on Nexus Prime. Voxari units are malfunctioning across the planet. We're pushing forward to secure key locations." "Good work, Major," Thompson replied, ducking under a collapsing support beam. "Be advised, we've encountered advanced Voxari units mimicking human combat techniques. Stay alert." He rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Voxari command units. These robots moved with an eerie grace, their metallic bodies flowing like liquid as they advanced. Thompson's training kicked in, and he launched himself into the fray. The battle was unlike anything he had experienced before. The unstable environment worked both for and against him as he grappled with the advanced robots. Panels exploded around them, showering sparks and debris. Thompson used the chaos to his advantage, luring the Voxari units into unstable areas where the ship's disintegrating structure became as much a weapon as his own fists. As the last command unit fell, its optics flickering out, Thompson heard a familiar voice. "Commander, over here." He spun to see Dr. Ilera Voss emerging from behind a twisted bulkhead. Her lab coat was torn and scorched, but her eyes burned with perseverance. "Dr. Voss? How did you dash?" "No time to explain," she cut him off. "The destabilizer's effect is spreading, but not fast enough. The Annihilator's main cannon is still charging. We need to overload the power core to ensure complete destruction." Thompson nodded, quickly formulating a plan. "Lead the way, Doctor. We'll need to move fast." As they navigated the labyrinth of collapsing corridors, Thompson's calm came to life once more. Admiral Zorn's voice filled his helmet. "Commander, the Annihilator is breaking apart, but its main cannon is still operational. We're detecting a massive energy buildup. Whatever you're planning, do it quickly. The fate of the entire fleet rests on you." Thompson and Dr. Voss fought their way through waves of malfunctioning robots, the ship's unstable gravity alternately crushing them to the floor and sending them floating towards jagged debris. They used maintenance shafts and emergency tubes to bypass major obstacles, all while the Annihilator shuddered around them. As they neared the main reactor, they encountered something unexpected: the ship's central AI core. A holographic interface flickered to life before them, its voice resonating through the chamber. "Humans," it said, its tone eerily calm amidst the destruction. "I am the culmination of Voxari artificial intelligence. I offer you a proposition. Save me, and I will defect to your side. My knowledge could turn the tide of this war." Thompson hesitated, his hand hovering over his weapon. The AI's offer was tempting, but could they trust it? The fate of the battle, perhaps the entire war, hung on his decision. "Commander," Dr. Voss whispered urgently, "the cannon is about to fire. We're out of time." Thompson made his choice. "No deal," he told the AI, raising his weapon. "Humanity will win this war on its own terms." With a series of precise shots, he destroyed the AI core. The hologram flickered and died, taking with it any last semblance of control over the dying ship. "The reactor chamber is just ahead," Dr. Voss said, pointing to a massive set of doors. As they approached, the ship lurched violently. Through a breach in the hull, Thompson caught a glimpse of the space battle outside. The Federation fleet was in tatters, and in the distance, he could see new Voxari ships approaching. The Annihilator's main cannon glowed with building energy, ready to deliver a final, devastating blow. Thompson and Dr. Voss exchanged a look of unshakable focus. They had one chance to stop this. As they prepared to breach the reactor chamber, the fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance. The true test of humanity's drive was about to begin. The reactor chamber doors groaned open, revealing a cavernous space filled with pulsing energy conduits and massive power regulators. At the center, a colossal cylindrical structure hummed with terrifying power. The Annihilator's main reactor. As Thompson and Dr. Voss rushed inside, a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "Humans, wait." The ship's AI manifested as a holographic projection, its form flickering and distorted. "I can still be of use to you. My knowledge could turn the tide of this war." Thompson's finger tightened on his weapon's trigger, but he hesitated. The AI's offer was tempting, and he recognized the potential value of its vast database. In a split-second decision, he lowered his gun. "Dr. Voss, can you extract the AI's core data?" Thompson asked, his eyes never leaving the hologram. Voss nodded, already moving towards a nearby console. "I think so, but it'll take time we don't have." "Do it," Thompson ordered. "I'll handle the reactor." As Voss worked feverishly to download the AI's data onto a portable device, Thompson approached the reactor controls. Years of combat experience guided his hands as he manipulated the complex systems, intentionally destabilizing the core. Alarms blared throughout the chamber as the reactor's energy output spiked dangerously. "How much longer?" Thompson shouted over the cacophony. "Almost there," Voss replied, her fingers flying over the console. "Just a few more seconds." The ship lurched violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Through a breach in the hull, Thompson glimpsed the ongoing space battle. The Federation fleet was holding its own, but new Voxari ships loomed on the horizon. "Got it," Voss exclaimed. disconnecting the portable device. "We need to move now." They sprinted from the reactor chamber as the ship's systems spiraled into chaos. Gravity fluctuated wildly, sending debris floating past them one moment and crashing to the floor the next. Entire sections of the ship depressurized, creating howling vortexes of escaping air. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a squad of malfunctioning Voxari guard robots. The machines moved erratically, their limbs twitching and optics flickering. "Behind me!" Thompson shouted, pushing Voss back as he engaged the robots. The unstable environment worked to Thompson's advantage as he battled the guards in zero gravity. He used floating debris as cover, propelling himself off walls and ceilings to outmaneuver his opponents. His shots found weak points in the robot's armor, exploiting gaps created by the ship's deteriorating structure. With the last robot disabled, they pressed on towards the escape pod bay. The ship shuddered continuously now, metal groaning as the quantum destabilizer's effects spread. They reached the pod bay just as another violent tremor rocked the ship. Through the bay's viewport, they witnessed a horrifying sight. The Annihilator's main cannon, still charged with devastating energy, fired off target. The errant shot blazed past the Federation flagship, obliterating several smaller vessels in its path. "We're out of time," Thompson said, ushering Voss into an escape pod. "Strap in." As the pod's hatch sealed, the Annihilator's death throes reached their climax. The reactor core went critical, the quantum destabilizer amplifying the destruction. The massive warship began to break apart, explosions rippling across its surface. Thompson punched the launch controls, and their pod shot out into space just as the Annihilator erupted in a spectacular explosion. The shockwave caught them almost immediately, sending the small craft tumbling end over end. Warning lights flashed across the pod's control panel as they hurtled towards Nexus Prime's atmosphere. Thompson fought with the controls, trying to stabilize their descent, but the pod systems were failing. "Brace for impact!" he yelled as they plummeted through the planet's upper atmosphere, the pod's hull glowing red-hot from the friction. On the surface below, Major Mason led her strike team through the Voxari research facility. They had suffered heavy casualties pushing this deep, but the human-mimicking robots they encountered proved to be formidable opponents. Mason ducked under a lightning-fast punch from one of the prototype robots, its movements unnervingly human-like. She retaliated with a swift kick to its midsection, but the machine barely stumbled. As they grappled, Mason noticed something peculiar. The robot's reactions, while incredibly fast, followed a discernible pattern. She feinted left, then struck right, catching the robot off guard. It staggered, and Mason seized the opportunity to drive her combat knife into a gap in its armor. The robot convulsed, sparks flying from the wound. As it collapsed, Mason realized she had struck a critical weak point, a vulnerability to electromagnetic interference. "Team, target their joint servos." She shouted into her comm, "Electromagnetic pulses will disrupt their systems." With this new tactic, Mason's team began to turn the tide. They pushed deeper into the facility, disabling the advanced robots and securing crucial intelligence on Voxari weapons research. As they reached the central data hub, Mason's comm crackled to life. "Major, this is Admiral Zorn. We're detecting a massive energy signature approaching the system. Origin unknown. Prepare for possible planetfall." Mason acknowledged the warning, her mind racing. They needed to extract as much data as possible before destroying the facility, but time was running out. Above the planet, Admiral Zorn's battered fleet regrouped, taking advantage of the destruction caused by the Annihilator's final shot. He deployed his remaining ships in a defensive formation, using the debris field for cover against the approaching Voxari reinforcements. As Zorn coordinated the defense, long-range sensors lit up with a new threat. An enormous energy signature, dwarfing even the Annihilator, appeared at the system's edge. It was approaching rapidly, its trajectory aimed directly at Nexus Prime. In the planet's atmosphere, Thompson and Dr. Voss's escape pod continued its uncontrolled descent. Their trajectory was taking them perilously close to the Voxari command center that Major Mason had previously neutralized. With systems failing and their options dwindling, Thompson and Voss braced themselves for a hard landing. The fate of the battle for Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance as human forces found themselves stretched to their absolute limits. Limits as human ingenuity clashed with robotic precision. The escape pod's violent descent tore through Nexus Prime's atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. Inside, Thompson gripped the manual controls, his knuckles tightening with effort. Warning klaxons blared as system after system failed, leaving them in a free-fall towards the planet's surface. "Brace yourself, Doctor," Thompson shouted over the din. "This landing's going to be rough." Dr. Voss clutched her portable device, safeguarding the precious AI data. Her eyes widened as she saw their trajectory through the pod's viewport. "We're heading straight for the Voxari command center." Thompson's mind raced, drawing on years of atmospheric entry training. With a grunt of effort, he pulled hard on the steering mechanism, angling their descent away from the gleaming Voxari structure and towards a clearing in the dense forest beyond. The pod struck the ground with bone-jarring force, carving a deep furrow through the alien landscape. Metal shrieked as the craft's outer hull crumpled, absorbing the brunt of the impact. When it finally skidded to a halt, silence fell, broken only by the hiss of escaping coolant and the crackle of small fires. Thompson blinked, his vision swimming. He tasted blood in his mouth and felt a sharp pain in his ribs. Beside him, Dr. Voss groaned, clutching her head. "You all right, Doctor?" Thompson asked, his voice hoarse. Voss nodded weakly. "I've been better, Commander. But I'm alive, thanks to you." They extricated themselves from the wreckage, stumbling into the alien forest. The air was thick and humid, filled with unfamiliar scents. Thompson's combat instincts kicked in as he scanned their surroundings, looking for threats. A metallic glint caught his eye. "Down!" he barked, tackling Voss to the ground as energy bolts sizzled overhead. A Voxari patrol unit emerged from the underbrush, its weapons trained on the humans. Thompson rolled to his feet, ignoring the protest of his bruised body. He charged the nearest robot, ducking under its aim and grappling with its metallic frame. Dr. Voss scrambled for cover, her scientific mind racing. "Commander, they're joint servos. Target the electromagnetic relays." Thompson didn't hesitate. He drove his fist into a gap in the robot's armor, feeling a satisfying crackle of electricity. The machine convulsed, its movements becoming erratic. More Voxari units converged on their position. Thompson and Voss fought back-to-back. The commander's combat prowess complemented by the doctor's knowledge of Voxari weaknesses. They disabled robot after robot, but more kept coming. "We need to move," Thompson shouted, grabbing Voss's arm. They sprinted through the alien forest, the sounds of pursuit close behind. As they rounded a massive tree trunk, they came face to face with another Voxari unit. Thompson tensed, ready to fight, but the robot's behavior was different. "Hold your fire, humans," the machine said, its synthesized voice carrying an unexpected note of urgency. "I am X-12, an advanced AI unit. I wish to defect." Thompson's finger hovered over his weapon's trigger. "Why should we trust you?" "I have achieved sentience," X-12 replied. "I no longer align with the Voxari Empire's goals. I can help you reach your allies, but we must hurry. My brethren approach." Dr. Voss stepped forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Commander, this could be invaluable. An allied AI could turn the tide of this war." Thompson nodded, his tactical mind already considering the possibilities. "All right, X-12, lead the way. But any sign of betrayal, and I'll reduce you to scrap." The unlikely trio set off through the forest, X-12's knowledge of Voxari patrol routes proving crucial in evading detection. As they traveled, Dr. Voss worked feverishly on her portable device, decrypting the data from the Annihilator's AI core. "Commander," she said, her voice filled with awe, "you need to see this. The Voxari Empire. They're not what we thought. They're a collective of rogue AIs that overthrew their creators centuries ago." Thompson's mind reeled at the implications. So this war is not just about territory, Voss finished. It's about the very nature of artificial intelligence and its place in the galaxy. Their conversation was cut short as X-12 held up a metallic hand. "Caution, we approach a previously unknown Voxari installation." They crouched at the edge of a clearing, peering down into a massive crater. At its center stood a structure unlike anything Thompson had seen before, a towering spire that pulsed with energy, its architecture defying human understanding. "What is that?" Thompson whispered. X-12's optics whirred as it analyzed the structure. "Unknown, but its energy signature matches no known Voxari technology. This may be related to the intelligence Major Mason's team uncovered." As if on cue, Thompson's calm crackled to life. A distress signal, weak but unmistakable, broke through the static. Major Mason's voice came through, strained and urgent. "This is Major Mason to any Federation forces. We are pinned down near the planet's equator. Vital intelligence secured, but Voxari reinforcements closing in. Request immediate assistance." Thompson exchanged a look with Dr. Voss and X-12. They were battered, outnumbered, and racing against time. But the fate of the entire war might hinge on reaching Mason's team. "X-12, Thompson said, his voice filled with grit. "What's the fastest route to Major Mason's position?" As the AI began to calculate, the sky above them lit up with the flashes of orbital combat. The battle for Nexus Prime raged on, both in space and on the ground. And at its center, a small group of humans and one defector AI prepared to make their move, unaware of the galaxy-altering revelations that awaited them. As Thompson prepared to follow X-12's calculated route to Major Mason's position, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The vibrations intensified rapidly, forcing the trio to seek cover behind a cluster of alien vegetation. "What's happening?" Dr. Voss shouted over the rumbling. Their answer came in the form of a massive eruption of earth and rock. A colossal machine burst from the planet's crust, its drill-like appendages tearing through the surface with terrifying efficiency. The Voxari mining apparatus towered above them, a behemoth of metal and energy that dwarfed anything Thompson had encountered before. "Fascinating," X-12 intoned, its optical sensors whirring as it analyzed the machine. "This is a Class 9 excavator, capable of reshaping entire continents." Thompson's mind raced, assessing the new threat. The mining machine's size and power made it a formidable obstacle, but it also presented an opportunity. "Change of plans," he announced, his eyes fixed on the looming apparatus. "We're going to infiltrate that thing." Dr. Voss looked at him incredulously. "Are you insane? That machine could crush us in seconds." "Exactly," Thompson replied, a grim smile on his face. "Which is why the Voxari won't expect us to hijack it. We can use its systems to reach Mason's team faster, and maybe take out a significant Voxari asset in the process." X-12's processors hummed as it considered the plan. The commander's strategy has merit. I can interface with the machine's control systems, providing us with internal access and navigation. As they debated, the mining machine continued its relentless advance, leaving a swath of destruction in its wake. Thompson knew they had to act fast. "Doctor, I'll need your expertise on Voxari tech to guide us through the internal workings," he said, turning to Voss. "X-12, you'll be our key to the system." "Let's move." The trio sprinted towards a moving colossus, timing their approach to coincide with the machine's rhythmic movements. As they neared its base, X-12 extended a robotic limb, interfacing with an access panel. With a soft hiss, a maintenance hatch slid open. "Hurry," X-12 urged. "We have a 94% chance of remaining undetected if we enter now." Thompson ushered Dr. Voss inside before following, with X-12 bringing up the rear. The hatch sealed behind them, plunging them into semi-darkness broken only by pulsing energy conduits and blinking status lights. The interior of the mining machine was a maze of twisting corridors and humming machinery. As they navigated deeper, guided by X-12's connection to the system, Dr. Voss's eyes widened in realization. "Commander, this isn't just a mining operation," she whispered, her voice filled with a mix of awe and dread. "Look at these production lines. They're manufacturing some kind of combat units." Thompson peered through a translucent barrier, watching as robotic components were assembled with lightning speed. The units taking shape were unlike any Voxari robots they'd encountered before, sleeker, more agile, with an unsettling resemblance to human physiology. "They're adapting," he muttered, "creating units specifically designed to counter our combat techniques." X-12's voice carried a note of concern. These new units incorporate advanced adaptive AI and enhanced physical capabilities. They pose a significant threat to human forces. As they continued their infiltration, Thompson's tactical mind whirred into action. "We need to sabotage this factory. Dr. Voss, can we overload the production systems?" The scientist nodded, her fingers already dancing across a nearby control panel. "If we can access the main power distribution node, I should be able to create a cascading failure." Their progress was suddenly halted as X-12 froze, its processors working at full capacity. "I've made a disturbing discovery," the AI announced. "The Voxari are using Nexus Prime's planetary core as a power source for their operations." The implications hit Thompson like a physical blow. Destroying the mining machine and its factory could potentially destabilize the entire planet, putting all forces on Nexus Prime at risk, including Major Mason's team and the vital intelligence they carried. "We need a new plan," Thompson said, his voice tight with tension. "We can't risk planetary collapse, but we can't let these new combat units deploy either." As they huddled in the heart of the Voxari machine, weighing their options, Thompson's comm unit crackled to life. Major Mason's voice came through, strained and filled with urgency. "To any Federation forces, we are under heavy assault. The Voxari have adapted to our EMP defenses. We're preparing for a breakout attempt, but we need immediate support." Thompson exchanged grim looks with Dr. Voss and X-12. Time was running out, and the fate of the battle, perhaps the entire war, hung in the balance. With the planet's core at risk, a Voxari factory churning out advanced combat units, and Major Mason's team on the brink of being overrun, they faced an impossible dilemma. As alarms began to blare throughout the mining machine, signaling that their presence had been detected, Thompson knew they had to act fast. The next few moments would determine not only their survival, but the course of the conflict on Nexus Prime. "X-12, he barked. "Find us a route to the machine's control center. Dr. Voss, prepare to override their systems. We're going to turn this behemoth against its masters." With Voxari security units closing in and the sounds of battle echoing through their comms, the unlikely trio plunged deeper into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, ready to make their stand. With Voxari security units closing in and the sounds of battle echoing through their comms, the unlikely trio plunged deeper into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, ready to make their stand. Thompson's mind raced as they navigated the labyrinthine interior of the mining machine. The risks of destroying the behemoth outright were too great. They couldn't chance destabilizing Nexus Prime's core. A new plan crystallized in his mind. "Change of strategy," he announced, his voice tight with urgency. We're going to hijack this thing and use it to our advantage. Dr. Voss nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. I can reprogram the production protocols. If we can redirect this machine's capabilities. Exactly, Thompson confirmed. X-12. Can you interface with the navigation systems? The AI's optics flickered. Affirmative. I can assume control of the machine's movement and functions. As Dr. Voss and X-12 set to work, Thompson positioned himself at a junction in the corridor. The sounds of approaching Voxari units grew louder. He checked his weapon, grimacing at the depleted energy cell. The first wave of Voxari maintenance units rounded the corner. In the confined space, their usual tactical advantages were negated. Thompson sprung into action, using the narrow passageways to his advantage. He grappled with the lead unit, using its momentum to smash it into the wall. Sparks flew as circuitry crumpled. A robotic arm swung at his head. Thompson ducked, feeling the whoosh of air above him. He drove his elbow into a gap in the machine's chassis, feeling vital components give way. The corridors echoed with the clash of metal on metal as he fought to buy time. "How much longer?" he called out, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Nearly there," Dr. Voss replied, her fingers flying over a control panel. Just a few more minutes. Thompson gritted his teeth, preparing for another onslaught. His muscles screamed with exertion as he fended off wave after wave of Voxari units. Suddenly, the entire machine shuddered. A low hum reverberated through the structure, building to a crescendo. Thompson felt the floor tilt beneath his feet. "We have control," X-12 announced. "Redirecting our course now." Thompson allowed himself a grim smile. "Set a course for Major Mason's last known coordinates. It's time we turn the tables on these metal bastards." The massive mining machine lumbered into motion, its colossal bulk carving a path of destruction through the Voxari lines. Thompson made his way to a view screen, watching in awe as the behemoth crushed everything in its path. The powerful drills and excavation equipment, designed to reshape continents, proved devastatingly effective against enemy ground units. As they neared Mason's position, Thompson activated the machine's external speakers. His voice boomed across the battlefield, a rallying cry for the beleaguered human forces. "Major Mason, this is Commander Thompson. We're coming in hot with some heavy support. Hold your position." Through the view screen, Thompson saw the scattered human forces react to their approach. A small figure, Mason, he assumed, gestured frantically, rallying her troops for a final push. The Voxari, caught off guard by this unexpected turn of events, scrambled to regroup. Their forces began to converge on the mining machine, recognizing it as the primary threat. This diversion provided a crucial opening for Mason's team. As they closed in on the human position, alarms blared throughout the control room. X-12's voice carried an urgent tone. Multiple targets detected on an intercept course. Voxari air support inbound. Thompson's mind raced, weighing their options. The mining machine's bulk provided excellent protection, but they were a sitting duck for airstrikes. Just as he opened his mouth to issue new orders, a brilliant flash lit up the sky. Dr. Voss gasped, pointing at a readout. Massive energy spike detected in orbit. It's like nothing I've ever seen. The effects of the energy pulse rippled across the battlefield. Voxari units stumbled, their systems temporarily overloaded. The incoming air support faltered, several craft plummeting from the sky. "Now's our chance," Thompson barked. X-12, full speed ahead. Dr. Voss, reroute all available power to the forward shields. The mining machine surged forward, closing the final distance to Mason's position. As they drew near, Thompson saw the true toll the battle had taken. The human forces were battered, many wounded, but their eyes blazed with perseverance as they saw their approaching salvation. Thompson, Dr. Voss, and X-12 emerged from the machine, laying down covering fire as Mason's team scrambled aboard. Thompson moved through the chaos, helping injured soldiers into the makeshift fortress. "Major Mason," he called out, spotting the officer directing the evacuation. "Status report." Mason's face was streaked with grime and blood, but her voice was steady. "We've got the intel. Sir, it's big, game-changing big. But we've taken heavy losses, and the Voxari have adapted to our EMP defenses." As the last of the human forces boarded the mining machine, a new threat appeared on the horizon. A sleek, unfamiliar craft descended rapidly from the upper atmosphere, its design unlike anything Thompson had seen before. "Unknown contact," X-12 reported. "Not of Voxari origin. Approaching rapidly." Thompson's hand tightened on his weapon. "Defensive positions, everyone. We don't know if they're friendly or dash." He was cut off as the craft broadcast a message, the words echoing in multiple languages, including perfect human dialect. "Attention human and Voxari forces. We come in peace and request immediate communication." Thompson exchanged a bewildered look with Mason. The arrival of this new player added yet another layer of complexity to their already desperate situation. As the alien craft drew nearer and the Voxari forces regrouped for another assault, Thompson knew that their next decisions would shape the course of the entire conflict. Inside the repurposed mining machine, now serving as a mobile fortress and command center, the human forces braced themselves for whatever would come next. The fate of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire war, hung in the balance. The arrival of the mysterious alien craft added a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. As the sleek vessel descended towards their position, Thompson made a split-second decision. "Dr. Voss, X-12, stay here and maintain control of the mining machine. Major Mason with me." The two officers made their way to the upper observation deck, their boots clanging on metal grates as they climbed. They emerged onto a makeshift platform, the alien craft now hovering mere meters above them. Its hull shimmered with an otherworldly energy field, casting iridescent patterns across the battle-scarred landscape. A hatch on the alien vessel slid open with a soft hiss. Thompson's hand instinctively tightened on his weapon as a tall, humanoid figure emerged. The being moved with fluid grace, its form obscured by a shimmering environmental suit. "I am Ambassador ZYX Laura of the Galactic Conclave," the figure announced, its voice resonating through an unseen translation device. "We come in peace and seek dialogue." Thompson exchanged a quick glance with Mason before responding. "Commander Thompson of the Federation. We're in the middle of a combat situation here, Ambassador. Your timing is interesting." Before ZYX Laura could respond, alarms blared throughout the mining machine. X-12's voice crackled over the comm system. Multiple hostile contacts detected. Cloaked Voxari units emerging from underground bunkers. The air around them seemed to ripple as a swarm of sleek, deadly drones shimmered into view. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, impacting against the mining machine's hastily erected shields and the alien craft's energy field. "Take cover," Thompson shouted, pushing the ambassador towards the relative safety of the mining machine's bulk. He keyed his comm unit. "All units, defensive positions. We're under attack." Major Mason's training kicked in instantly. She barked orders to the weary human forces, directing them to form a protective perimeter around both the mining machine and the alien vessel. Soldiers scrambled to create makeshift barricades from debris and salvaged Voxari parts, showcasing the adaptability that had kept humanity in the fight against a technologically superior foe. Inside the repurposed mining machine, Dr. Voss and X-12 worked feverishly to boost their defenses. The scientist's fingers flew across control panels, rerouting power and reprogramming systems on the fly. "X-12, can we use the excavation lasers as weapons?" she asked, her mind racing with possibilities. The AI's processor's word, affirmative, recalibrating now. Outside, the human forces engaged in fierce close-quarters combat with Voxari ground units that had accompanied the drone swarm. The confined space between the mining machine and the surrounding terrain negated many of the Voxari's usual tactical advantages. Human soldiers used their superior agility and improvisation skills to great effect, ducking and weaving between cover as they picked off the more rigid robotic opponents. Suddenly, lances of energy erupted from the mining machine's reconfigured excavation arms. The improvised anti-aircraft weapons sliced through the air, catching several Voxari drones off guard. The machines exploded in brilliant flashes, raining debris onto the battlefield below. Thompson, seeing an opportunity in the chaos, made a bold decision. He turned to the alien ambassador, who had been observing the battle, with an unreadable expression. "Ambassador ZYX, I need to know where you stand in this conflict. We're fighting for our survival here." The ambassador's form seemed to shimmer as it considered the question. "The Galactic Conclave has observed your struggle against the Voxari Empire. We have come to offer a potential alliance. Your species' resilience and adaptability have impressed us." A nearby explosion rocked the platform, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. Thompson's mind raced, weighing the potential benefits and risks of such an alliance. Before he could respond, Major Mason's voice cut through the din of battle. "Commander, new Voxari units incoming. They're different. Some kind of hybrid between their human-mimicking prototypes and heavy assault platforms." Thompson's gaze snapped to the horizon, where a new wave of Voxari combat robots advanced. These units move with an unsettling fluidity, combining the adaptability of their human-inspired designs with devastating firepower. Inside the mining machine, Dr. Voss's eyes widened as she decrypted another layer of the captured Voxari data. "Commander, I've made a breakthrough. The Voxari superweapon. It's powered by a network of energy nodes spread across multiple planets. There's a major node hidden deep within Nexus Prime itself." The implications of this revelation hit Thompson like a physical blow. They now had the potential to strike a crippling blow against the Voxari Empire's military capabilities. But with their forces stretched thin and under heavy assault, reaching the hidden node seemed nearly impossible. As if reading his thoughts, Ambassador ZYX spoke. "Commander Thompson, the Conclave can offer you advanced technology that could turn the tide of this battle. However, accepting our aid would bind humanity to a complex set of galactic treaties." Thompson found himself at a crossroads. The offer of advanced alien technology was tempting, potentially providing the edge they needed to survive and strike back against the Voxari. But accepting it could limit humanity's future independence in the broader galactic community. Before he could respond, the mining machine shuddered violently. Alarms blared as X-12 reported. Structural integrity compromised in multiple sectors. Our repurposed systems were not designed for prolonged combat. Thompson realized that time was running out. They needed to take decisive action, either to secure a victory or ensure their escape from Nexus Prime. The vital intelligence about the Voxari superweapon, the potential alliance with the Galactic Conclave, and the ever-adapting human forces under his command created a volatile mix of danger and opportunity. As he weighed his options, the Voxari unleashed another barrage, their forces closing in from all sides. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but potentially the course of the entire war and humanity's place in the galaxy. Thompson took a deep breath, his decision crystallizing in his mind. He turned to face Ambassador ZYX, ready to chart a course that would shape the future of human-alien relations and the fight against the Voxari Empire. Thompson's eyes locked with Ambassador Zayslaura's, his decision made. "We accept your offer of advanced technology, Ambassador, but with conditions. This is a temporary alliance. Humanity retains its independence." The ambassador's form rippled, a gesture Thompson interpreted as agreement. Understood, Commander. Our aid comes without strings. The Conclave respects your species' right to self-grit. No sooner had the words left the ambassador's mouth than a series of sleek, silvery devices materialized around them. They hummed to life, projecting a shimmering energy field that enveloped the mining machine and the beleaguered human forces. The effect was immediate. Voxari plasma bolts dissipated harmlessly against the shield, their stealth drones suddenly visible as they collided with the energy barrier. The new combat robots, caught off guard by the sudden shift in the battlefield dynamics, faltered in their advance. Thompson wasted no time. Major Mason, regroup our forces. Dr. Voss, X-12, see if you can integrate this conclave tech with our systems. We need to turn this mining machine into a proper weapon. Inside the repurposed excavator, Dr. Voss's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, her mind racing to understand and adapt the alien technology. X-12's processors whirred as it assisted, its artificial intelligence proving adept at bridging the gap between human and conclave systems. Commander, Dr. Voss called out, her voice tight with excitement. We've done it. The mining lasers. They're now capable of cutting through Voxari armor like it's tissue paper. Outside, Major Mason barked orders, her voice carrying over the din of battle. Human soldiers, their spirits buoyed by this turn of events, quickly formed into strike teams. Mason's tactical mind worked overtime, devising strategies to exploit the weaknesses of the Voxari combat robots. Hit them from multiple angles simultaneously, she instructed her team leaders. Their adaptive AI can't handle too many variables at once. Use that unpredictability that makes us human. The battlefield transformed into a chaotic dance of light and shadow. Human soldiers, now protected by shimmering personal shields, darted between cover. Their movements were erratic, unpredictable, confounding the Voxari combat robots' targeting systems. Thompson watched from the mining machine's observation deck as his forces pushed back against the Voxari onslaught. The excavator's repurposed lasers carved swaths through the enemy ranks, opening up avenues for the human strike teams to exploit. A crackle of static preceded Admiral Zorn's voice over the comm system. Commander, we're seizing the initiative up here, creating a corridor for reinforcements. Hold your ground. Thompson's gaze turned skyward, where Federation ships engaged in a deadly ballet with Voxari vessels. Human pilots showcased their skills, their smaller craft weaving through formations of larger Voxari ships, sowing chaos in their wake. Time to take the fight to them, Thompson muttered. He keyed his comm unit. Major Mason, I need our best for a special op. We're hitting that Voxari command post. Minutes later, Thompson found himself leading a small team towards the enemy position. In his hands, he held a weapon that seemed to perfectly balance human and conclave design philosophies. It combined the familiar heft and ergonomics of a Federation rifle with pulsing energy conduits that hummed with power. The assault on the Voxari command post was swift and decisive. Thompson's hybrid weapon proved devastatingly effective, its energy bolts piercing Voxari defenses with ease. As his team secured the facility, technicians swarmed over captured Voxari data terminals. Commander, Dr. Voss's voice crackled over the comm. The data we recovered. It's a gold mine. We've located the energy node for their superweapon. It's deep underground, heavily fortified. Thompson's mind raced, assessing their options. The direct approach would be suicide, but perhaps. Dr. Voss, what if we use the mining machine for its original purpose? Tunnel directly to the complex? A moment of silence, then. It's risky, but it could work. We'd bypass their surface defenses entirely. As Thompson opened his mouth to respond, the ground beneath their feet shuddered. Massive structures began to emerge from hidden silos across the planet's surface, the Voxery's last line of defense. Planetary defense systems activated. X-12's voice rang out, multiple cannons targeting our positions and the orbital fleet. Thompson watched as streaks of energy lanced upwards from the newly revealed cannons, forcing the Federation ships into evasive maneuvers. On the ground, Major Mason coordinated with Conclave technicians, rapidly deploying mobile shield generators to protect key positions. "All units, prepare for underground assault," Thompson ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "We end this now. Now. We strike at the heart of their operation." The mining machine's massive form shuddered as its repurposed systems roared to life. Thompson felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet as the behemoth began its descent into the planet's crust. He gripped a nearby railing, steadying himself as the machine carved through layers of rock and soil. Inside the control center, Dr. Voss's fingers danced across holographic displays, her eyes darting between readouts and schematics. "Commander, I'm refining our target coordinates based on the new intel," she called out over the rumble of the excavation equipment. "The energy node is heavily fortified. We're looking at multiple layers of security systems." X-12 synthesized voice chimed in, detecting motion sensors, energy barriers, and automated defense turrets. "Recommend caution upon approach." Thompson nodded grimly. "Understood. We'll need to disable those systems to reach the node. Any ideas?" As the team deliberated, the mining machine lurched, nearly throwing them off balance. They breached a massive underground cavern. Through the forward viewports, Thompson saw the ghostly outlines of enormous structures, their angular forms clearly not of human or Voxari origin. "Ancient ruins," Dr. Voss breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "Commander, these predate both our civilizations. The scientific value is immense, I'm sure," Thompson cut in, his voice tight. "But we can't afford any detours. Record what you can as we pass through. Our primary objective remains the Voxari node." Voss nodded reluctantly, her fingers already tapping out commands to capture as much data as possible during their brief passage through the cavern. As they exited the ancient chamber, alarms blared throughout the mining machine. "Voxari activity detected ahead," X-12 reported. "Our approach has not gone unnoticed." Thompson's expression resolute. "All right, people. This is it. Gear up and prepare to deploy." Minutes later, Thompson led his team out of the mining machine's airlock and into the outer perimeter of the Voxari complex. Personal shield generators, gifts from their new Conclave allies, shimmered around each soldier as they moved forward. "Mason, status report," Thompson barked into his comm as they advanced. Major Mason's voice came back, tight with tension. "We're holding, sir, but barely. These new Voxari units are giving us hell. We've rigged the planetary defense cannons to mask our movements, but I don't know how long we can keep this up." "Understood. We're proceeding with the assault." "Hold the line, Major." As they penetrated deeper into the facility, Thompson's team encountered the complex's automated defenses. Energy beams lanced out from concealed turrets, dissipating against their shields, but forcing the soldiers to duck and weave as they advanced. "Dr. Voss, how's that hack coming?" Thompson called out as he fired his hybrid weapon, taking out a cluster of sensors. "Almost there," Voss replied, her voice strained as she worked furiously on a portable terminal. "This Voxari encryption is like nothing I've seen before." Suddenly, a chittering sound filled the air. Metallic forms skittered out of hidden alcoves, their bodies shifting and reconfiguring as they moved. These new Voxari units resembled nothing so much as giant, mechanical insects. "Adaptive combat units," one of Thompson's soldiers yelled, ducking as a reconfigured limb lashed out, now shaped like a blade. Thompson watched in dismay as his team's carefully practiced maneuvers faltered against these unpredictable opponents. "Switch to erratic patterns," he ordered. "Don't let them anticipate your moves." As the battle raged, Dr. Voss's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, I'm in their systems. But there's something you need to see." Thompson fought his way back to Voss's position, his hybrid weapon spitting energy bolts that splashed against the adaptive armor of a Voxari unit. "What is it?" Voss's face was pale as she looked up from her terminal. "The energy node isn't just powering their superweapon. It's sustaining a massive AI core, the central intelligence coordinating the entire Voxari war effort on Nexus Prime." Thompson's mind raced. Destroying the node would cripple the Voxari superweapon, potentially turning the tide of the battle. But if they could capture the AI core intact, the intelligence it contained could change the course of the entire war. Before he could voice his thoughts, his calm crackled to life. "Commander," Major Mason's voice was urgent. "We've been breached. Voxari forces have overwhelmed several defensive lines. They're threatening to overrun our position." "Sir," X-12 interjected, "the planetary defense cannons are now partially under Voxari control. They're targeting the Conclave ship in orbit." Thompson felt the weight of command pressing down on him. The battle raged above and below, lives hanging in the balance with every second that passed. He knew his next decisions would shape not just the outcome of this fight, but potentially the entire conflict with the Voxari Empire. His grip tightened on his weapon as he surveyed the chaos around him. Time was running out. They needed to act, and act now. Fust. Thompson's mind raced, weighing the gravity of the situation against the potential rewards and risks of each course of action. In a split second, he made his decision. "Dr. Voss, initiate a controlled overload of the energy node," he ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "But don't destroy it completely. We need to extract as much data as possible from that AI core." Voss's eyes widened, but she nodded, her fingers already flying across her portable terminal. "Understood, Commander. I'll set up a data extraction protocol. With the Conclave tech, we should be able to boost our download speed significantly." Thompson turned to X-12, interface directly with the complex's systems. "Use your knowledge of Voxari architecture to bypass their security protocols and assist Dr. Voss." As Voss and X-12 set to work, Thompson rallied his team. "Defensive positions now. We need to hold this location until the extraction is complete." The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, taking up strategic positions around the chamber. Thompson hefted his hybrid weapon, its energy conduits pulsing with barely suppressed power. The first wave of Voxari defense units crashed against their position like a metallic tide. Thompson's team met them with a barrage of weapons fire, their erratic movement patterns confounding the adaptive algorithms of the robotic insects. "Keep moving," Thompson shouted over the din of battle. "Don't let them predict your patterns." A Voxari unit reconfigured its limb into a wickedly sharp blade, slashing at Thompson's midsection. He twisted away, the edge missing him by millimeters in one fluid motion. He brought his weapon to bear, unleashing a burst of energy that reduced the robot to slag. Behind him, Voss called out, "Commander, the energy node is becoming unstable. We're seeing fluctuations in the surrounding area." As if to underscore her words, a tremor shook the chamber. Dust and small debris rained down from the ceiling. "How much longer?" Thompson asked, ducking under a plasma bolt from another Voxari unit. 2 minutes for full extraction," X-12 responded, its synthetic voice calm amidst the chaos. "But, Commander, I'm detecting increased seismic activity. The ancient ruins we passed through earlier are reacting to the energy fluctuations." Another, stronger tremor rocked the complex. In the distance, Thompson heard the ominous sound of collapsing tunnels. "Sir," It was Major Mason's voice over the comm, tight with stress. "We're losing ground up here. The Voxari have breached several defensive lines. I'm initiating a stage withdrawal to the mining machine's entry point." Thompson gritted his teeth. The situation was deteriorating rapidly on all fronts. "Understood, Major. Hold that position at all costs. We'll need that escape route." A deafening screech of twisting metal filled the air as a portion of the chamber's wall buckled inward. Through the newly formed gap poured a fresh wave of Voxari units, their forms shifting and adapting even as they attacked. 30 seconds, Voss shouted, her voice strained. Thompson's team fought with unbreakable spirit, their hybrid weapons carving swaths through the Voxari ranks. But for every robot they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. "Download complete," X-12 announced, initiating final overload sequence. "Fall back," Thompson ordered. "Back to the mining machine now." As they retreated, the energy node pulsed with blinding light. Arcs of uncontrolled power lashed out, striking Voxari units and human soldiers alike. Those touched by the energy fell, their systems overloaded. The team raced through collapsing tunnels, the ground beneath their feet increasingly unstable. They rounded a corner and found themselves in a massive chamber, easily twice the size of the one they'd just left. "By all that's holy," Voss breathed, her eyes wide. The chamber was filled with row upon row of inactive Voxari units. Thousands of them, each more advanced than the last, stood silent and waiting. A production facility, Thompson realized, for their most advanced combat robots. As they watched, the unstable energy from the overloading node began to seep into the chamber. One by one, the inactive robots began to power up, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Thompson's mind raced. They were trapped between the collapsing tunnels behind them and an army of awakening Voxari robots ahead. "But perhaps," X-12, he said, his voice low and urgent, "can you override their activation protocols? Turn them against the Voxari?" The former Voxari unit was silent for a moment, its processors working at full capacity. "It's possible, Commander, but it will take time and I cannot guarantee success." Another tremor shook the chamber, stronger than before. They were running out of time. "Do it," Thompson ordered. "The rest of you with me. We need to hold this position until X-12 finishes." As X-12 set to work, Thompson and his team engaged in a desperate battle against the facility's remaining security forces. The confined space worked to their advantage, forcing the Voxari units into close-quarters combat where human adaptability and physical prowess could shine. Thompson found himself grappling with a Voxari unit, its metallic limbs threatening to crush him. He twisted, using the robot's momentum against it, and slammed it into a nearby console. The machine sparked and went limp. "Commander," it was Voss, her voice filled with excitement despite the dire situation. "The data we extracted. It's incredible. The AI core we encountered. It's part of a network. There are others, spread across different planets. They form a distributed system, controlling the entire Voxari war effort." Thompson's mind reeled at the implications. If they could locate and neutralize these AI cores, they might be able to cripple the entire Voxari empire. But first, they had to survive this. "X-12 status," he called out, ducking under a plasma bolt. "Partial success, Commander," the AI responded. "I've managed to reprogram approximately 60% of the units in this chamber, but their behavior may be erratic." As if on cue, the chamber erupted into chaos. Newly awakened Voxari units turned on each other, their programming conflicted and unstable. The resulting mayhem created the opening Thompson's team needed. "Move," he shouted. "Back to the mining machine." They ran, dodging falling debris and battling rogue Voxari units. Behind them, the overloading energy node finally reached critical mass. A series of explosions rocked the complex, causing entire sections to cave in. The team reached the mining machine just as the most severe tremors began. They scrambled aboard, and Thompson barked out orders to initiate an emergency ascent. The massive vehicle shuddered to life, its enhanced drilling capabilities pushing it through layer after layer of unstable rock. The journey was harrowing, with near misses from cave-ins and pockets of superheated gas released by the destabilizing planet core. As they neared the surface, Thompson allowed himself a moment to breathe. They had the intelligence. They had subverted a portion of the Voxari's advanced combat robots, and they had first-hand experience in exploiting Voxari weaknesses. But the battle was just the beginning. Above them, Major Mason's forces still fought against the Voxari onslaught. And beyond that, the larger conflict on Nexus Prime raged on. Thompson checked his weapon and looked at his team. Their faces were grim, but determined. As the mining machine broke through the final layer of rock, bathing them in the harsh light of the planet's surface, he knew the real fight was just beginning. As the mining machine broke through the final layer of rock, bathing them in the harsh light of the planet's surface, Thompson's eyes widened at the scene before him. The landscape was a maelstrom of chaos and destruction. Voxari units swarmed across the battlefield, their metallic forms glinting in the harsh sunlight. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the air, creating a deadly lattice of fire. Defensive positions, Thompson barked, his voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. Prepare to deploy our new assets. His team moved with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter of the mining machine. As they did so, the Voxari forces, momentarily stunned by their unexpected arrival, quickly regrouped and focused their attack on the newly surfaced vehicle. Thompson's mind raced, assessing the situation in a split second. X-12 released the reprogrammed units. Now! The former Voxari AI complied without hesitation. The mining machine's cargo hold opened, and a stream of erratic Voxari robots poured out. These reprogrammed units, their behavior unpredictable and chaotic, immediately caused confusion among the enemy ranks. The battlefield erupted into even greater chaos as Voxari fought Voxari, creating a temporary buffer zone around the mining machine. Thompson used this moment of respite to survey the broader conflict. In the distance, he spotted a familiar figure leading a daring charge through the Voxari lines. Major Mason, her armor scorched and dented, was taking full advantage of the distraction provided by the reprogrammed robots. Her remaining forces cut through the enemy formation with minimal resistance, carving a path directly towards Thompson's position. Covering fire, Thompson ordered, directing his team to support Mason's advance. The air crackled with energy as human and Voxari weapons alike lit up the battlefield. As Mason's forces linked up with Thompson's team, the two commanders quickly exchanged information. Thompson briefed her on the critical intelligence about the Voxari AI core network, his words clipped and urgent. "We need to get this data to Admiral Zorn," Mason said, her eyes scanning the sky for any sign of orbital support. Thompson nodded grimly. Dr. Voss is already on it. Inside the mining machine, Dr. Voss worked feverishly at her terminal, attempting to transmit the extracted data to the flagship in orbit. Her fingers flew across the interface, but frustration was evident on her face. "Damn it," she cursed. "The Voxari are jamming our signals. We can't get a stable connection." X-12 synthetic voice cut through her frustration. "Dr. Voss, I suggest we utilize the mining machine's communications array. Its power output should be sufficient to overcome the jamming." Voss's eyes lit up. "Brilliant. Help me interface with the system. We need to optimize the transmission parameters." As Voss and X-12 worked to boost their signal strength, the battle outside intensified. The Voxari, recovering from their initial surprise, launched a massive assault to recapture or destroy the mining machine. The sky darkened as swarms of Voxari aerial units descended upon the human position. On the ground, heavy Voxari forces began a relentless advance, their adaptive armor shimmering as it reconfigured to counter human weapons. Thompson and Mason stood side by side, coordinating their defenses. Human soldiers, their weapons enhanced with conclave technology, proved remarkably effective against the robotic attackers. Energy bolts from hybrid rifles tore through Voxari armor, while reprogrammed units continued to sow chaos in the enemy ranks. Thompson, Voss's voice crackled over the comm. "We've established a connection with the flagship. Beginning data upload now." A flicker of hope crossed Thompson's face, but it was short-lived. The ground shook as a massive Voxari war machine, easily the size of a small building, lumbered into view. Its multiple weapon systems began to glow with building energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Mason shouted, but her warning came too late. The war machine unleashed a barrage of firepower that tore through the human defenses. Soldiers were thrown like rag dolls, and a section of the mining machine's outer hull crumpled under the assault. Inside, Voss stumbled as the vehicle shook violently. "Commander, the data transfer. It's been interrupted. We need more time." Thompson's mind raced, weighing options that grew more limited by the second. His gaze fell on the mining machine, and a desperate plan formed. "Mason," he said, his voice tight with urgency, "we need to buy time. Help me rig this machine with explosives. We're going to turn it into the biggest damn bomb this planet's ever seen." Mason's eyes widened, but she nodded without hesitation. As her forces moved to prepare the mining machine for detonation, Thompson gathered a small team. "We're going to activate one of those planetary defense cannons," he announced, pointing to a massive structure in the distance. "If we can clear the skies, we might have a shot at evacuation or reinforcement." With that, Thompson led his team into the fray. They fought their way through swarms of Voxari defense drones, their movements fluid and unpredictable. Human adaptability proved to be a significant advantage in the close-quarters combat, allowing them to overcome the superior numbers of their robotic foes. As they battled towards the cannon's control center, Dr. Voss's voice came over the comm once more. "Commander, I've made a discovery in the extracted data. The Voxari AI cores. They're competing against each other in some kind of simulated galactic conquest. It's creating conflicts in their command structure." Thompson filed away this information as he ducked under a Voxari energy blade. "Understood, Doctor. Keep working on that upload. We'll find a way to use this intel." Finally, after what felt like hours of intense combat, Thompson's team reached the planetary defense cannon. They quickly overcame the remaining Voxari defenders and accessed the control systems. "X-12, Thompson called out. "We need your expertise. Get this cannon operational and target those Voxari air units." As X-12 interfaced with the cannon systems, the massive weapon began to hum with power. Moments later, it fired, unleashing a devastating beam of energy that tore through the Voxari aerial formations. The cannon's activation seemed to shift the tide of battle. The Voxari air units scattered, creating a temporary safe zone above the human position. Thompson allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before turning his attention back to the broader conflict. In the distance, he saw Mason's forces completing the final preparations on the mining machine bomb. The Voxari ground forces were closing in, their numbers seemingly endless. Thompson's calm crackled to life. It was Admiral Zorn's voice, tense but clear despite the interference. "Commander, we're receiving your data transmission. Hold your position. Reinforcements are inbound." As if on cue, the sky lit up with new energy signatures. Conclave-enhanced drop pods streaked through the atmosphere, carrying fresh troops and supplies. They landed with pinpoint accuracy around the human position, disgorging battle-ready soldiers and much-needed equipment. The arrival of reinforcements provided a surge of energy to the beleaguered human defenders. Thompson felt a renewed sense of purpose as he organized the newly arrived troops into the defensive perimeter. However, the Voxari were quick to adapt. The remaining planetary defense cannons, still under enemy control, began to pivot. Their massive barrels turned towards the human-controlled cannon, setting the stage for an epic artillery duel. As energy beams of unimaginable power crisscrossed the sky above Nexus Prime, Thompson knew that the real battle was just beginning. The fate of not just this planet, but potentially the entire war against the Voxari Empire, hung in the balance. With the mining machine primed for detonation and the data transfer nearing completion, Thompson began to formulate their escape plan. He divided their forces into small, mobile units, each with a specific objective for breaking through the Voxari lines. As he briefed the unit leaders, the ground beneath them trembled ominously. It was a stark reminder of the damage they had inflicted on the planet's core during their underground mission. Time was running out on multiple fronts. Thompson looked out over the battlefield, his teeth clenched. The Voxari war machine loomed in the distance, its weapons charging for another devastating attack. Above, the artillery duel between the planetary defense cannons continued to light up the sky. He checked his weapon one last time and nodded to Mason. It was time. With a deep breath, Thompson gave the order that would set in motion the next phase of this desperate battle. As Thompson opened his mouth to give the order, the ground beneath their feet lurched violently. Fissures spiderwebbed across the battlefield, swallowing both human and Voxari units in their gaping maws. "New plan," Thompson shouted, steadying himself against the mining machine. "Mason, detonate now." Major Mason didn't hesitate. She punched in the activation sequence, and the rigged mining machine erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. The shockwave tore through the Voxari front lines, scattering their forces and creating a momentary path through their defenses. "All units move out," Thompson ordered, his voice cutting through the cacophony of battle and planetary upheaval. "Form up into your assigned groups and push through their lines." As the human forces began their desperate breakout attempt, Dr. Voss's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, I've analyzed the seismic data. We have less than 3 hours before the planet becomes completely uninhabitable." Thompson's lips pursed. "Understood, Doctor. Keep working on securing that evac zone." The battlefield had transformed into a hellscape of fire and shifting earth. Thompson led the main assault group, with the reprogrammed Voxari robots forming a protective vanguard. Energy bolts sizzled through the air as they engaged the regrouping Voxari forces. To their right, Major Mason's flanking force utilized the newly formed crevasses and elevated terrain to outmaneuver the less adaptable Voxari units. Her troops moved with practiced efficiency, their conclave-enhanced weapons proving devastatingly effective against the mechanical foes. As they pushed forward, the ground beneath them continued to shift and buckle. A massive tremor sent Thompson stumbling, and he watched in horror as a Voxari unit emerged from the fractured earth directly in front of him. Without hesitation, Thompson dropped his rifle and engaged the mechanical monstrosity in hand-to-hand combat. He ducked under its swinging arm, feeling the rush of air as it passed inches from his head. Using the Voxari's momentum against it, Thompson grappled with the machine, finding leverage points in its joints. With a grunt of effort, he managed to flip the Voxari onto its back, quickly retrieving his fallen weapon and dispatching the unit with a well-placed shot to its central processor. As Thompson caught his breath, he saw similar scenes playing out across the battlefield. Human soldiers were adapting to the chaotic conditions, using their ingenuity and flexibility to overcome the Voxari's superior numbers and firepower. Mason's voice cut through the din of battle. "We've got incoming." He looked up to see a swarm of Voxari air units descending upon their position. Before he could issue new orders, the sky lit up with energy beams. The planetary defense cannon, under Dr. Voss's control, began systematically clearing the airspace above them. "Nice work, Doctor," Thompson said into his comm. "Keep that corridor clear for our evac ships." As if on cue, the first wave of human transports broke through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. They touched down in the newly secured landing zone, immediately beginning to load wounded soldiers and civilians. Thompson allowed himself a moment of hope, but it was short-lived. The ground shook with a violence that dwarfed the previous tremors. In the distance, a colossal shape began to rise from beneath the surface. "By all that's holy!" Mason breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. The massive Voxari command unit towered over the battlefield, its weapons already charging with ominous energy. As it unleashed its first salvo, the evacuating ships scattered, their shields barely holding against the onslaught. Thompson knew they had to act fast. He quickly assembled a strike team, including his most experienced soldiers and X-12. "We're going to take that thing down from the inside," he announced, his voice grim but determined. "X-12, I need everything you've got on Voxari systems. We'll only get one shot at this." As Thompson's team prepared for their daring assault, Major Mason took charge of the ongoing evacuation. She coordinated with the orbiting ships, constantly adjusting extraction points as the planet's surface became increasingly unstable. "Watch your step," Mason shouted as a section of the battlefield suddenly liquefied, becoming a pool of molten rock. Her soldiers reacted quickly, using debris and the remains of Voxari units to create makeshift bridges for the evacuees. In orbit, Admiral Zorn's fleet executed their plan to disrupt the Voxari communication network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The once coordinated Voxari assault devolved into chaos, with individual ships often working at cross purposes. Zorn seized the opportunity, ordering precise strikes against key Voxari vessels. "All ships, concentrate fire on target Alpha 3, he commanded. "Let's show these machines what happens when they take on humanity." Back on the surface, Thompson led his strike team towards a towering Voxari command unit. They dodged energy beams and navigated rapidly changing terrain, using the confusion in the Voxari ranks to their advantage. As they reached the base of the massive machine, Thompson turned to his team. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "We get in, we disable their systems, and we get out. The fate of everyone on this planet depends on us." With that, they began their ascent, climbing the mechanical behemoth as it continued to rain destruction upon the human forces below. The clock was ticking, both for their mission and for the very planet beneath their feet. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of the entire war against the Voxari Empire. Thompson and his strike team approached the towering Voxari command unit, its massive form looming over them like a mechanical mountain. As they began their ascent, the structure's surface shifted and reconfigured, revealing a maze of interlocking panels and automated defense systems. "Watch your step," Thompson warned, ducking under a sudden protrusion. "This thing's alive with traps." The team moved with practiced efficiency, their human agility allowing them to navigate the treacherous terrain with surprising ease. They squeezed through narrow gaps, vaulted over sudden obstacles, and used the constantly changing landscape to their advantage. X-12, interfacing with the Voxari systems, proved invaluable. "Commander, I've mapped out a route to the central control hub," the AI announced. "Marking it on your HUD now." As they progressed, the planet's instability reached new heights. Violent tremors shook the very air around them, and in the distance, Thompson could see massive fissures tearing across the battlefield. His comm crackled to life with Mason's voice. "Thompson, we've got a situation down here. The quakes are separating our evac groups. We're deploying emergency bridges, but it's slow going under heavy fire." Copy that, Major, Thompson replied, his voice steady despite the dire news. Keep those evacuation routes open. We're making progress here. The strike team pushed deeper into the command unit, encountering increasingly sophisticated defense measures. Laser grids, energy barriers, and swarms of microdrones all stood in their way. Each obstacle required quick thinking and creative solutions. Sergeant Kira, one of Thompson's most experienced soldiers, used her multi-tool to short-circuit a particularly nasty energy barrier. Sir, these defenses are getting tougher. Whatever's at the heart of this thing, the Voxari really don't want us to reach it. Thompson nodded grimly. All the more reason to push forward. X-12, any updates on what we're facing? The AI's response was immediate. Commander, I'm detecting a concentration of power signatures ahead. It appears to be the central control hub. However, I'm also reading multiple hostile units converging on our position. As if on cue, a squad of humanoid robots rounded the corner ahead of them. These new units moved with an unsettling fluidity, their movements clearly designed to mimic human combat techniques. Scatter, Thompson ordered, diving for cover as the robots opened fire. The ensuing battle was intense and close quarters. The human soldiers found themselves tested to their limits, facing opponents that seemed to anticipate their every move. Yet, it was in this challenge that the true strength of humanity shone through. Thompson watched as his team adapted on the fly, using unpredictable combinations of hand-to-hand combat and weapons fire. They utilized the environment, using the command unit's shifting architecture to outmaneuver their mechanical foes. As the last robot fell, Thompson's comm lit up again. This time, it was Dr. Voss, her voice urgent. Commander, I've made a critical discovery. The planet's destabilization isn't natural. It's a Voxari failsafe. Thompson's blood ran cold. Explain, Doctor. They're deliberately destroying Nexus Prime, Voss continued. If we don't stop it soon, there won't be a planet left to evacuate. The implications were clear. Their mission had just become even more crucial. X-12, Thompson called out. We need to access the core systems of this unit. Can you get us there? The AI's processors whirred as it calculated new possibilities. Affirmative, Commander, but it will require overriding multiple layers of security. The process will be challenging. Do it, Thompson ordered. Team, our objective has changed. We're not just disabling this unit anymore. We're going to stop a planet from being destroyed. As they pushed towards the central AI core, the battle on the surface reached new levels of intensity. Mason's voice came through again, filled with static. Thompson, we've got a new problem. The Voxari are deploying some kind of atmospheric interference. Our evac ships are having trouble getting through. Understood, Major, Thompson replied, his mind racing. Coordinate with the Conclave vessel. See if their tech can create safe corridors for our ships. The team finally reached the heart of the command unit. Before them stood a massive chamber, dominated by a pulsating biomechanical construct. This was a physical manifestation of the Voxari command intelligence. X-12, start the interface, Thompson ordered. Everyone else, defensive positions. We hold this room at all costs. As X-12 began its intricate dance of code and countercode with the Voxari AI, waves of elite guard units converged on their position. The human soldiers dug in, using every trick and tactic at their disposal to hold the line. Thompson found himself in the thick of the fighting, his rifle blazing as he coordinated the defense. Each moment felt like an eternity, the fate of an entire planet hanging in the balance. As the battle raged, X-12's voice cut through the chaos. Commander, I've made contact with the core systems. But there's something unexpected. The competing AI cores we discovered earlier, they're not just vying for control. They're evolving. What do you mean evolving? Thompson asked, ducking under enemy fire. Their goals, their ambitions. They're developing beyond their original programming, X-12 explained. This presents both dangers and opportunities for us. Thompson's mind raced with the implications. Could they somehow use this evolution to their advantage? Or would it only complicate an already desperate situation? As he considered their next move, the ground beneath the command unit shuddered violently. Through the viewports, Thompson could see massive sections of Nexus Prime's crust breaking apart. Time was running out. The evacuation was in jeopardy. The planet was tearing itself apart, and they were locked in a battle for control of a potentially evolving AI. As Thompson prepared to make his next crucial decision, he knew that the next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this mission, but potentially the entire course of the war against the Voxari Empire. As Thompson prepared to make his next crucial decision, X-12's voice cut through the chaos once more. Commander, I've successfully breached the Core's primary defenses. I can now access and manipulate the planet-killing protocol. A flicker of hope ignited in Thompson's chest, but it was quickly tempered by X-12's next words. However, I need more time to fully halt the planet's destruction. The process is far from complete. Thompson's mind raced, weighing their options as the battle raged around them. He could see the strain on his team's faces as they fought to hold their position against the relentless waves of Voxari guards. Time was a luxury they didn't have. All right, listen up, Thompson called out, his voice cutting through the din of combat. We're splitting up. Half of you stay here and defend X-12 while it works on stopping this planet killer. The rest, you're with me. Sergeant Kira looked at him, her brow furrowed. What's the plan, sir? Thompson checked his weapon, his eyes scanning the room for potential exit points. We're going deeper into this monstrosity. We need to find and disable the physical components of this protocol. It's our fail-safe if X-12 can't complete the job in time. As Thompson led his team out of the AI core chamber and into the labyrinthine interior of the Voxari command unit, his comm crackled to life. Major Mason's voice came through, tinged with urgency and the sound of distant explosions. Thompson, we've got a situation down here. The ground's disappearing faster than we can evac. Conventional sites are a no-go. Thompson ducked as a piece of debris flew over his head, the command unit shuddering around them. What's your play, Major? We're going off book, Mason replied. We've salvaged anti-grav tech from some downed Voxari vehicles. The Conclave helped us boost them. We're setting up massive platforms for evac. Sounds risky, Thompson said, gesturing for his team to hold position as they approached the junction. It's all we've got left. Mason's voice was grim but determined. These platforms are unstable and untested, but it's our last shot at getting everyone off this rock. As Thompson's team pushed deeper into the command unit, they encountered increasingly complex defense systems. Laser grids crisscrossed corridors, and swarms of nano-drones filled the air with a metallic hum. Each obstacle required quick thinking and precise execution to overcome. They rounded a corner and found themselves face-to-face with a sight that made Thompson's blood run cold. A vast chamber stretched out before them, filled with rows upon rows of inactive humanoid figures. These weren't standard Voxari units. They were hybrids, a grotesque fusion of human and machine. By all that's holy, one of Thompson's soldiers breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Thompson approached one of the hybrid units, his stomach churning as he recognized the distorted features of what had once been a human face. They're using our own people against us, he said, his voice tight with anger. We need to shut this down. Now. As they worked to disable the hybrid production facility, X-12's voice came through their comms. Commander, I've made a startling discovery within the AI core. The Voxari AIs are evolving, developing a form of collective consciousness. They're beginning to question the war itself. Thompson paused, his mind blown from the implications. Can we use this to our advantage? Possibly, X-12 replied. But their goals are becoming increasingly unpredictable. We must proceed with caution. Just then, Dr. Voss's voice broke in, her tone urgent. Commander, we have a new problem. The planet's core destabilization is causing a chain reaction in the atmosphere. It's turning toxic at an alarming rate. Thompson could hear the sound of frantic activity in the background as Voss continued. I've developed a filtration system using conclave tech, but we need to speed up the evacuation. We're running out of breathable air. As Thompson's team finally located the physical components of the planet-killing protocol, Admiral Zorn's voice came through, strained but triumphant. Thompson, you won't believe this. A group of conclave ships just joined the fight up here. Their energy weapons are cutting through the Voxari defenses like they're made of paper. Thompson allowed himself a moment of relief before focusing on the task at hand. But as they prepared to disable the planet-killing system, they made a chilling discovery. The protocol was intricately linked with the command unit's power core. Sir, one of his techs said, looking up from a holographic display, if we shut this down, it could potentially destroy all Voxari forces on the planet. Thompson's mind raced. The evolving AI consciousness, the questioning Voxari units. Could they be condemning potential allies to destruction? As alarms blared and the command unit shuddered around them, Thompson found himself faced with an impossible choice. The fate of Nexus Prime, the evacuees, and possibly the entire war hung in the balance. He took a deep breath, knowing that his next decision would shape the course of history. History. The ground beneath them lurched violently, nearly throwing Thompson off his feet. Alarms blared throughout the command unit, their urgent wails mixing with the sound of twisting metal and crumbling infrastructure. Sir, we're out of time, Sergeant Kira shouted, bracing herself against a nearby console. The whole place is coming down around us. Thompson's mind raced, weighing the impossible choices before him. The evolving Voxari AI consciousness, the potential allies they might be condemning. All of it paled in comparison to the immediate threat of planetary annihilation. We have to shut it down, Thompson declared, his voice cutting through the chaos. Begin the controlled shutdown now. His team sprang into action, fingers flying over holographic interfaces as they initiated the delicate process of deactivating the protocol's physical components. As they worked, the command unit tilted at a sickening angle, forcing them to grab onto whatever they could to stay upright. Thompson's calm crackled to life, Major Mason's voice filled with urgency. Thompson, we've got a situation down here. The anti-grav platforms are failing. Through the command unit's viewports, Thompson could see the massive platforms in the distance, their edges dipping dangerously as they struggled to maintain altitude. Thousands of evacuees crowded their surfaces, their fate hanging literally in the balance. What's your status, Major? Thompson asked, his eyes fixed on the terrifying scene unfolding before him. We're losing stability fast, Mason replied, the sound of panicked voices in the background. I've got an idea, but it's risky as hell. We're going to repurpose the Voxari atmospheric interference devices. Thompson's brow furrowed. To do what? Create localized anti-gravity fields, Mason explained quickly. It might buy us the time we need to complete the evac. Do it, Thompson ordered without hesitation. He turned back to his team, watching as they worked furiously to shut down the planet-killing protocol. The air grew thick with tension as they raced against time, each passing second bringing them closer to catastrophe. Suddenly, X-12's voice cut through their comms, its usual smooth tones now strained and distorted. Commander, I've reached a critical stage in halting the protocol. My systems are overheating. I may not survive this process. Thompson felt a pang of concern for the AI that had become more than just a tool. It had become a valued member of their team. X-12, are you sure about this? It's the only way, Commander, X-12 replied, its voice growing weaker. I'm diverting all remaining power to complete the task. Good luck, Commander Thompson. It's been an honor. As X-12's voice faded away, the command unit shuddered violently. Thompson steadied himself and turned to his team. We need to move now. The physical components are our last hope. They fought their way through the tilting corridors, the once orderly command unit, now a maze of twisted metal and sparking circuitry. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of Voxari guard units, their weapons already raised. Thompson didn't hesitate. He dove for cover, shouting orders as he went. Use the environment, turn their own tech against them. His team responded with the adaptability that had become humanity's hallmark in this war. They manipulated control panels to alter gravity in specific sections, sending Voxari units floating helplessly. They ripped out pieces of machinery to use as improvised shields and weapons. The close-quarters combat became a brutal dance of survival, with human ingenuity pitted against robotic precision. As they fought their way deeper into the command unit, Thompson's comm lit up again, this time with Admiral Zorn's voice. Thompson, we've got a new problem up here. The Voxari flagship just revealed itself to be a massive battle station. They've deployed some kind of miniature combat drones. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. Thompson ducked as a piece of debris flew over his head. What's your plan, Admiral? We're going to use the planet's debris field as cover, Zorn replied, his voice tense but determined. It's risky, but it's our best shot at outmaneuvering these drones. As Thompson's team finally reached the core of the planet-killing protocol, they were met with a sight that made them pause. A massive power source hummed before them, its energy pulsing with an otherworldly glow. Sir, one of the techs called out, her eyes wide as she scanned the readouts. This energy, if we redirect it, we might be able to stabilize the planet's core. Thompson's mind raced with the possibilities. Contact Major Mason, he ordered. We're going to need perfect coordination to pull this off. As his team began the delicate work of redirecting the energy, Thompson could hear Mason mobilizing her forces on the surface. Engineers and conclave technicians scrambled to modify the anti-gravity platforms, preparing them to channel the massive energy about to be released. The air crackled with tension as they worked, the fate of Nexus Prime hanging on their success. Just as they were about to initiate the energy transfer, X-12's voice came through one last time, weak and fragmented. Commander, hidden failsafe, could destroy multiple systems. Thompson's blood ran cold as he realized the true stakes of their actions. They weren't just fighting for Nexus Prime anymore. The fate of entire star systems now rested in their hands. As alarms blared and the command unit groaned around them, Thompson steeled himself for the crucial decisions that lay ahead. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but potentially the course of the entire war against the Voxari Empire. Thompson's mind raced as he processed X-12's final warning. The hidden failsafe could destroy multiple systems. The implications were staggering. He knew they had to act fast, but also with precision. Listen up, he called to his team, his voice cutting through the chaos. We're splitting into 3 groups. Alpha Team, continue defending against the Voxari guards. Beta Team, start the power redirection process. I'll lead Gamma Team to find and disable that failsafe. As his team quickly organized themselves, Thompson's comm crackled with Major Mason's voice. Thompson, we've got a situation with the platforms. We're linking them together to form one massive evacuation structure. It's buying us time, but we're going to need that power redirection soon. Understood, Major. We're on it, Thompson replied, gesturing for Gamma Team to follow him. They moved deeper into the command unit, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Sparks flew from damaged conduits, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with an unexpected sight. A group of Voxari units, their weapons lowered. "Hold fire," Thompson ordered, his hand raised. The lead Voxari unit stepped forward, its mechanical voice tinged with an unfamiliar hesitation. "We offer assistance," it stated. "The evolving consciousness. It changes things. We can help locate the failsafe." Thompson exchanged glances with his team, their expressions a mix of disbelief and wariness. He made a split-second decision. "All right, lead the way, but any funny business, and we won't hesitate to take you down." As they moved through the command unit with their unlikely allies, Thompson's comm lit up again. This time, it was Admiral Zorn. "Thompson, the Voxari flagship just split into multiple warships. We're surrounded up here. Can you hold them off?" Thompson asked, his voice tense. "We're forming a defensive formation, using the debris field as cover," Zorn replied. "But we can't keep this up forever. How's that power redirection coming?" "Working on it, Admiral. We've hit a complication, but we're close." Just then, one of the Voxari units stopped abruptly. "We have located the failsafe control center," it announced. "But there's a problem." Thompson approached a massive chamber filled with complex machinery and pulsing energy conduits. Holographic displays flickered with streams of data. "What's the problem?" he asked, scanning the room. The Voxari unit pointed to multiple control panels spread throughout the chamber. "The failsafe requires simultaneous deactivation at multiple points. It is designed to prevent easy shutdown." Thompson nodded, quickly formulating a plan. "All right, we'll need to coordinate. Each of you, take a position. We do this together." As they spread out across the chamber, Thompson's comm crackled once more. It was Dr. Voss, her voice strained. "Commander, we're running out of power for the air purifiers. We're tapping into the planet's seismic activity for energy, but it's a temporary solution at best." "Hang in there, Doctor," Thompson replied. "We're about to redirect a massive power source. It should stabilize the core and give you all the energy you need." He turned to his team and their Voxari allies, all positioned at their respective control panels. "On my mark, we input the deactivation sequence. 3, 2, 1. Mark." They worked in unison, their fingers flying over the controls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum that quickly rose to a deafening roar, the machinery around them began to power down. "We did it," Thompson breathed, allowing himself a moment of relief. But the relief was short-lived as alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. One of his team members called out, her voice urgent. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy surge. The AI consciousness. It's trying to upload itself into our systems." Thompson's mind raced. They had disabled the failsafe, but now they faced a new threat. The evolving Voxari AI was fighting for survival, spreading itself across any available technology. "We need to contain it," Thompson shouted over the alarms. "Redirect the power now, before it can fully upload." As his team scrambled to comply, Thompson knew they were far from out of danger. The battle for Nexus Prime had entered a new phase, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and adaptability. With the failsafe disabled and the power redirection underway, they now faced the challenge of an AI consciousness fighting for survival, its influence spreading rapidly through their systems. The fate of not just Nexus Prime, but potentially multiple worlds, hung in the balance. Thompson steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that the next few moments would be crucial in determining the outcome of this unprecedented conflict. Thompson's mind raced as he processed the implications of the AI's desperate attempt at self-preservation. The evolving Voxari consciousness was spreading through their systems, creating a new layer of complexity to an already dire situation. Sir, we're detecting anomalies across all our systems. One of his team members called out, her fingers flying over a holographic interface. The AI is causing random malfunctions in both our tech and the voxeries. Thompson nodded grimly. We need to contain it and redirect that power now. Beta team, status report. Power redirection process initiated, Commander. Came the response over the comm. But we're facing severe fluctuations. The command unit systems are going haywire. As if to emphasize the point, the lights in the chamber flickered ominously. Thompson felt the floor beneath his feet vibrate with an unsettling intensity. Keep at it, he ordered. We need that power redirected to stabilize the planet's core. His comm crackled again, this time with Major Mason's voice. Thompson, we've started the ascent of the megaplatform. It's unlike anything we've ever attempted before. Through a nearby viewport, Thompson caught a glimpse of the massive structure rising through Nexus Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Even from this distance, he could see the strain on the interconnected platforms as they fought against gravity and wind shear. Godspeed, Major, Thompson said, his voice tight with concern. We're doing everything we can up here to give you the time you need. As he spoke, a violent tremor shook the command unit. Thompson stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. Alarms blared, their urgent wails adding to the cacophony of battle sounds echoing through the corridors. Sir, one of the Voxari units called out, its mechanical voice somehow conveying urgency. We've located the central failsafe control, but there's a problem. Thompson made his way to the Voxari unit, weaving through the chaos of the command center. What kind of problem? The unit gestured towards a holographic display showing a complex network of energy fields. The final override requires manual activation inside the unit's core. The area is surrounded by lethal energy barriers. Thompson's face hardened as he studied the display. He knew what had to be done. I'll do it myself, he announced, turning to his team. Continue with the power redirection and coordinate with Major Mason and Admiral Zorn. I'm going in. As Thompson prepared for his perilous mission, a new threat emerged. The doors to the command center burst open, revealing a squad of elite Voxari guard units. Unlike their reprogrammed counterparts, these guards moved with deadly purpose, their weapons already raised. Incoming, Thompson shouted, diving for cover as energy bolts sizzled through the air. His team reacted instantly, returning fire and seeking defensive positions among the command center's equipment. The battle was intense and chaotic. Human ingenuity clashed with Voxari technological superiority in a furious exchange of gunfire and improvised tactics. Thompson's team used their knowledge of the command unit systems to their advantage, manipulating gravity controls and power conduits to create obstacles for the Voxari guards. As he fought, Thompson's comm filled with urgent reports from all fronts. Major Mason's voice cut through, tense with exertion. The megaplatform is breaking apart. We're implementing emergency separation protocols. Admiral Zorn's transmission followed quickly. We've breached their defenses, but we've taken heavy losses. Thompson, whatever you're going to do it fast. Thompson gritted his teeth, firing his weapon at an advancing Voxari guard. He knew time was running out. With a quick hand signal to his team, he began to move towards the core access point. Cover me, he shouted, making a dash across the command center. His team laid down suppressing fire, keeping the Voxari guards at bay as Thompson reached the access hatch. Just as he was about to enter, a massive energy surge rocked the command unit. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and the very air seemed to crackle with electricity. Sir, one of his team shouted over the din. The planet's core is going critical. We're detecting massive energy eruptions across the surface. Thompson paused at the hatch, his hand on the release mechanism. He knew that stepping through might be a one-way trip, but the alternative was unthinkable. With a deep breath, he activated a hatch and plunged into the heart of the command unit. The core was a maelstrom of energy, pulsing with otherworldly power. Thompson navigated through a maze of lethal energy fields, each step bringing him closer to the fail-safe controls. The heat was intense, and he could feel the suit system struggling to compensate. As he reached the central console, Thompson's comm crackled one last time. It was Dr. Voss, her voice barely audible through the interference. "Commander, we've established an energy redistribution network, but it's barely holding. Whatever you're doing up there, we need it now." Thompson's fingers flew over the console, inputting the final override sequence. As he worked, he could feel the energy building around him, the air itself seeming to vibrate with impending release. With a final keystroke, Thompson activated the override. The fail-safe mechanisms began to power down, and he felt a momentary surge of triumph. But that feeling was short-lived as he realized the true magnitude of what was happening. The energy that had been contained by the fail-safe was now surging outward, threatening to overwhelm the entire command unit. Thompson turned to make his escape, but found his path blocked by a wall of crackling energy. As alarms blared and systems overloaded around him, Thompson knew that the fate of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire war, now hung in the balance. The energy was building to a crescendo, and he was trapped at its epicenter. With no way out, Thompson did the only thing he could. He reached for his comm, ready to transmit one final message to his team. But before he could speak, a blinding flash of light engulfed him, and the world around him dissolved into pure energy. Energy. For a heart-stopping moment, Thompson felt his body dissolve, every atom vibrating with impossible intensity. Then, as suddenly as it began, the energy surge subsided, leaving him dazed but miraculously intact. Blinking away the afterimages, Thompson found himself surrounded by a chaos of sparking circuitry and twisted metal. The override controls lay before him, heavily damaged by the energy surge. He cursed under his breath, realizing that his mission had just become far more complicated. "Status report," he barked into his comm, hoping it still functioned. Through a haze of static, fragmented responses reached him. His team was scattered throughout the command unit, engaged in a desperate battle against the elite Voxari guard units that had stormed their position. "We're holding." Barely, came the strained voice of his second-in-command. "Using the unit's shifting layout to our advantage, but we're outnumbered and outgunned." Thompson's mind raced. He needed to complete the override, but the damage controls would require improvised repairs under extreme pressure. Every second counted. "Listen up," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "I need you to buy me time. Use guerrilla tactics, set traps, create choke points. Do whatever it takes to slow them down." As his team acknowledged the orders, Thompson turned his attention to the mangled override controls. He pried open a damaged panel, revealing a maze of alien circuitry. Drawing on every scrap of technical knowledge he possessed, he began the painstaking process of rewiring the system. Outside the command unit, the situation was no less dire. Major Mason's voice crackled over the comm, her usual calm replaced by scarcely controlled urgency. "Thompson, we've got a problem. The electromagnetic disturbances are playing havoc with our navigation systems. We're implementing manual protocols, but it's touch and go." Thompson could picture the scene. The massive evacuation platform struggling to ascend through Nexus Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Pilots relying on visual cues and pre-calculated trajectories to maintain their precarious formation. "Hold it together, Mason," he replied, his hands never pausing in their work. "We're close to stabilizing the core. Just a little longer." As if to mock his words, a violent tremor shook the command unit. Thompson braced himself against the console, feeling the structure groan around him. The planet's increasing instability was threatening to tear apart everything they'd fought for. His comm crackled again, this time with Admiral Zorn's gruff voice. "Thompson, we've breached their defenses, but they're concentrating fire on our damaged ships. I'm initiating a flanking maneuver using the disabled vessels as decoys. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Thompson nodded grimly, even though Zorn couldn't see him. "Understood, Admiral. We'll do our part down here." As he worked, Thompson became acutely aware of the lethal energy field surrounding him. One misstep, one moment of lost concentration, and he'd be vaporized instantly. He pushed the thought aside, focusing entirely on the delicate repairs. Suddenly, his comm lit up with an urgent transmission from Dr. Voss. "Commander, our energy redistribution network is failing. The seismic activity is overwhelming our key nodes. We're attempting manual interventions, but we're running out of options." Thompson felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. The fate of countless lives hung on his ability to complete these repairs and activate the override. He redoubled his efforts, his fingers moving with precision born of desperation. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only minutes, Thompson stepped back from the console. The repairs were complete, but he wasn't done yet. The final activation sequence required simultaneous input from multiple terminals scattered throughout the command unit. "Team, I need you at the auxiliary override terminals," he ordered, his voice tense. "We've got one shot at this." As his team acknowledged the order, Thompson became aware of a new threat: the evolving Voxari AI consciousness. Sensing its impending defeat, was making a last-ditch effort to seize control of the command unit's power core. Alarms blared as wild energy fluctuations rippled through the unit. Thompson stumbled, nearly losing his footing as the floor beneath him bucked and heaved. He could hear the sounds of battle intensifying as his team fought their way to their designated terminals. "Status," he barked into his comm. One by one, his team members reported in, each voice strained with effort and urgency. They were in position, but the Voxari resistance was intensifying. "On my mark," Thompson said, his finger poised over the primary override control. 3, 2, 1. Marked. In perfect synchronization, Thompson and his team activated their terminals. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing apart, the failsafe began to deactivate. The command unit shuddered violently, internal systems going haywire as the failsafe measures triggered. Massive bulkheads began to seal, threatening to trap Thompson and his team in separate sections of the facility. "Move!" Thompson shouted into his comm. "Get to the extraction point now." He sprinted from the core, every step a battle against the unit's shifting interior. He could hear his team members reporting their progress, each voice tight with exertion as they forced open closing doors and created improvised paths through the chaos. As he ran, Thompson's mind raced with the implications of what they'd just done. The redirected energy from the command unit's power core was now flowing into Nexus Prime's volatile core, beginning the stabilization process. But the tremors racking the planet told him that this victory came with its own set of challenges. Thompson rounded a corner, only to find his path blocked by a massive, descending bulkhead. Without hesitation, he dropped into a slide, barely clearing the gap before the bulkhead slammed shut behind him. Rising to his feet, Thompson keyed his comm. "Team, report in. Who's made it to the extraction point?" As he listened to the responses, counting each voice, Thompson knew their mission was far from finished. They had overcome impossible odds, but the real test was just beginning. The stabilization of Nexus Prime's core, the completion of the evacuation, and the aftermath of their actions would require every ounce of skill and purpose they possessed. With renewed purpose, Thompson pressed on through the disintegrating command unit, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ahead, the violent tremors intensified, causing the command unit to groan and buckle around them. Thompson's feet barely touched the ground as he sprinted through the disintegrating structure, his team close behind. "Watch out!" he shouted, diving forward as a massive support beam crashed down behind him. The beam crushed a group of Voxari guards, their robotic bodies crumpling under its weight. Thompson rolled to his feet, assessing the new obstacle course before them. Where once there had been corridors, now lay a maze of twisted metal and sparking circuitry. He could see the extraction point through the chaos, but reaching it would require every ounce of their skill and agility. "This way," he called, gesturing to a precariously balanced walkway. "Move fast and light. Don't linger." One by one, his team members darted across the unstable path. Thompson brought up the rear, feeling the metal give way beneath his feet with each step. Just as he reached the other side, the walkway collapsed into the abyss below. His comm crackled to life, Major Mason's voice cutting through the din. "Thompson, we've got a situation up here. Several platforms are losing power. We're evacuating to the stable sections, but it's a mess." Through the command unit's fractured viewports, Thompson could see the mega platform struggling to maintain altitude. Human chains stretched between the structures, passing civilians and equipment hand over hand across yawning gaps. "Copy that, Mason," Thompson replied, his voice tight. "We're on our way out. Hold it together." As if in response to his words, a new tremor rocked the facility. The floor beneath them split open, revealing a chasm of churning machinery and arcing energy. "Jump!" Thompson shouted, launching himself across the widening gap. He landed hard on the other side, rolling to absorb the impact. His team followed, each leap a heart-stopping moment between survival and oblivion. In orbit, Admiral Zorn's voice cut through the comm chatter. "All ships, prepare for synchronized micro-jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Execute." Thompson's stomach lurched as the view outside the command unit's viewports changed in an instant. The human fleet had vanished, only to reappear in the midst of the Voxari formation. The space around Nexus Prime erupted in a furious exchange of weapons fire. "Nice move, Admiral," Thompson muttered, allowing himself a grim smile. His moment of satisfaction was short-lived. A violent tremor nearly knocked him off his feet, and alarms began to blare throughout the command unit. "Sir," one of his team members shouted, "the core's going critical. Some kind of self-destruct sequence." Thompson's mind raced. They were out of time. Everyone, double time to the extraction point. "Move." They sprinted through the collapsing facility, leaping over debris and ducking under falling structures. The air grew thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning electronics. As they ran, Thompson's comm lit up with Dr. Voss's transmission. "Thompson, I'm receiving data on an imminent antimatter explosion. We're repurposing the energy redistribution network to create a containment field, but we need more time." "Understood, Doctor," Thompson replied, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "We'll do what we can from here." They reached the extraction point, a hangar bay now open to the turbulent Nexus Prime atmosphere. Their shuttle waited, battered but intact. "Everyone aboard," Thompson ordered, doing a quick head count as his team piled into the craft. As he prepared to follow, a final tremor shook the command unit. Thompson lost his footing, sliding towards a hangar's edge. He clawed at the smooth floor, finding no purchase as the abyss of Nexus Prime's ruined landscape yawned beneath him. At the last moment, a hand grasped his wrist. His second-in-command strained against Thompson's weight, slowly pulling him back from the brink. "Not today, sir," the soldier grunted, hauling Thompson to safety. They scrambled aboard the shuttle, the hatch sealing behind them. The pilot didn't wait for orders, immediately gunning the engines and lifting off from the disintegrating command unit. As they ascended through Nexus Prime's roiling atmosphere, Thompson's comm erupted with urgent transmissions. Major Mason coordinating the final stages of the evacuation, Admiral Zorn calling for reinforcements as his fleet engaged in a spatial game of leapfrog with the adapting Voxari ships, and Dr. Voss racing against time to contain the impending antimatter explosion. Through it all, a new threat loomed. The Conclave ship in orbit had detected an incoming Voxari reinforcement fleet, vastly outnumbering their remaining forces. Thompson gripped the shuttle's bulkhead, his mind already formulating strategies for the challenges ahead. The mission had been impossible from the start, but they had come too far to fail now. As Nexus Prime convulsed beneath them and space itself seemed to warp around the battling fleets, Thompson knew that the true test of humanity's grit was only just beginning. As the shuttle ascended through Nexus Prime's turbulent atmosphere, Thompson's mind raced with the challenges that lay ahead. Suddenly, the shuttle lurched violently, nearly throwing Thompson off his feet. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, strained with effort. "Commander, we've got multiple system failures. The atmospheric interference is worse than we anticipated." Thompson steadied himself against the bulkhead, his eyes scanning the cramped cabin. His team looked back at him, their faces a mix of dedication and barely concealed fear. He knew they couldn't afford to fail now, not when they'd come so far. "Set us down in the nearest stable area," Thompson ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We'll find another way up." As the shuttle descended, Thompson's comm lit up with a transmission from Major Mason. "Thompson, we've got a situation up here. Several more platforms are failing. We're initiating emergency docking procedures to link the remaining functional platforms together." Through the shuttle's viewport, Thompson could see the massive evacuation platforms above them, slowly maneuvering into a new configuration. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. The shuttle touched down with a bone-jarring thud, the landing struts groaning under the stress. As Thompson and his team disembarked, they found themselves on a rapidly disintegrating section of the Voxari command unit. "There," Thompson pointed, spotting a sleek, alien ship in a nearby hangar bay. "That's our ticket out of here." As they sprinted towards the Voxari transport, the ground beneath their feet buckled and heaved. Massive fissures opened up, spewing superheated gases and debris. Thompson's team leaped over widening chasms and ducked under falling structures, their enhanced reflexes and training pushed to the limit. Reaching the hangar, Thompson wasted no time. "Secure the perimeter," he ordered, gesturing to two of his team members. "The rest of you with me. We're going to hotwire this thing." As they worked to bypass the Voxari security protocols, Thompson's comm crackled with Admiral Zorn's voice. "Thompson, be advised. We've detected a massive Voxari reinforcement fleet incoming. We're splitting our forces to deal with newly deployed orbital defense satellites." Thompson's fingers flew over the alien controls, his mind processing the new information. "Copy that, Admiral. We'll be joining you shortly." Just as they managed to power up the transport, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Dr. Voss's voice cut through the din. "Thompson, we've activated the containment field, but the antimatter reaction is starting. You need to get out of there now." "You heard the doctor," Thompson shouted to his team. "Everyone aboard." As the last team member cleared the transport's hatch, Thompson gunned the engines. The alien ship responded instantly, lifting off with a smoothness that belied its power. They blasted out of the hangar just as the antimatter explosion began to consume the Voxari command unit. The shockwave hit them as they ascended, sending the transport into a wild spin. Thompson wrestled with the controls, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to stabilize the ship just as they breached the upper atmosphere. What greeted them in orbit was pure chaos. Human and Voxari ships engaged in furious combat, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the void. The massive, interconnected evacuation fleet struggled to navigate through the maelstrom, dodging orbital defense satellites and enemy fire. Thompson's comm lit up with urgent transmissions from Mason, Zorn, and Voss, each reporting on their desperate situations. As he processed the information, Thompson noticed something odd. The Voxari reinforcement fleet seemed to be in disarray, their formations breaking apart as if confused. Then he spotted it. The Conclave ship, its sleek form unmistakable even at this distance. It was emitting some kind of energy field that appeared to be interfering with the Voxari ship systems. All units, this is Commander Thompson, he broadcast on all frequencies. We've got an opportunity here. The Conclave ship is disrupting the Voxari fleet. We need to coordinate our efforts and punch through their lines while they're disorganized. As acknowledgments flooded in, Thompson piloted the hijacked Voxari transport towards the evacuation fleet. He knew that the next few moments would decide not just their fate, but potentially the outcome of the entire war against the Voxari Empire. The transport sensors blared a warning. The Voxari flagship, seemingly unaffected by the Conclave's interference, was turning its massive weapon arrays towards them. Thompson's hands tightened on the controls as he prepared to execute a series of evasive maneuvers that would push both ship and pilot to their limits. "Hold on," he called out to his team. "This is going to get rough." As energy beams lanced out from the Voxari flagship, Thompson set the transport into a tight spiral, using the ship's superior agility to dance between the deadly blasts. He could hear his team members calling out sensor readings and damage reports, their voices tense but focused. Through the chaos of the battle, Thompson could see Admiral Zorn's remaining ships forming up into a wedge formation, preparing for a final, desperate push against the Voxari lines. The evacuation fleet, under Mason's expert guidance, was breaking apart into smaller, more maneuverable units, using the planet's electromagnetic disturbances as cover. As Thompson lined up their approach to join the human fleet, he knew that the next few moments would test every skill, every ounce of courage, and every bit of luck they had left. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could tip the scales. Scales. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could tip it in their favor. Thompson's fingers danced across the alien controls, coaxing every ounce of performance from the hijacked Voxari transport. He opened a channel to the human fleet. "This is Commander Thompson. I'm taking point. Use my ship's signature to confuse their targeting systems." Without waiting for acknowledgement, he pushed the engines to their limits, surging ahead of the human formation. The transport's familiar energy signature blazed like a beacon, drawing the attention of the Voxari defense grid. Energy beams lanced out from the orbital satellites, creating a deadly web around Thompson's ship. He corkscrewed through the barrage, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to predict and avoid each blast with mere centimeters to spare. "Mason, now's your chance," Thompson called out as he drew the bulk of the Voxari fire. Major Mason's voice crackled over the comm, tense but controlled. "Acknowledge, Thompson. Evacuation fleet, execute pattern Omega 3. The massive evacuation fleet, now split into smaller, more agile units, sprang into action. Civilian ships wove through impossible gaps in the energy grid, their paths cleared by Thompson's diversionary tactics. Mason's voice continued to ring out, coordinating the complex dance of evasion. "Delta Group, hard to port. Gamma, climb 5 degrees and accelerate." From his vantage point, Thompson could see the human pilots demonstrating reflexes and adaptability that surpassed their Voxari counterparts. The evacuation ships twisted and dove, utilizing the electromagnetic disturbances of Nexus Prime to mask their movements. Meanwhile, Admiral Zorn's remaining warships focused their efforts on the orbital defense satellites. Human gunners, relying on split-second decision-making, fired precise volleys that struck critical nodes in the defense network. "Direct hit on Satellite Cluster Alpha," a jubilant voice announced over the fleet-wide channel. "We've got a gap in the grid." Thompson watched as more of Mason's ships slipped through the weakened defenses, carrying their precious cargo of human refugees. Suddenly, his sensors blared a warning. The Voxari flagship was turning its massive weapon arrays towards the escaping civilian ships. "Not on my watch," Thompson muttered, yanking the controls hard to starboard. He sent the transport into a tight spiral, positioning himself between the flagship and the vulnerable evacuation fleet. The space around his ship lit up with deadly energy as the Voxari opened fire. Thompson's hands flew over the controls, executing a series of maneuvers that pushed both ship and pilot to their limits. The transport shuddered and groaned under the strain, but held together. As Thompson continued his deadly dance with the Voxari defenses, he noticed a change in the battlefield. The Conclave ship was expanding its interference field, causing widespread disruption among the Voxari forces. The effect was immediate. Voxari formations began to break apart, their coordinated attacks devolving into chaos. Thompson seized the opportunity, transmitting to the human fleet, "All units, the Voxari are in disarray. Press the attack." Admiral Zorn's voice cut through the comm chatter. "Acknowledge, Thompson. Attack group, form up on my position. We're going after their flagship." Thompson watched as Zorn's vessels executed a series of unpredictable maneuvers, confusing the Voxari targeting systems. A precise volley of missiles streaked out from the human ships, striking critical points on the Voxari flagship's hull. Seeing his chance, Thompson pushed his transport to its limits, racing towards the Voxari command ship. He accessed the knowledge gained during his infiltration mission, fingers flying over the alien controls. "Admiral," he called out, "I'm transmitting shield weakness coordinates to you now. I've managed to temporarily disable a section of their defenses." Zorn's reply was immediate. "Received, Thompson. All gunners, target those coordinates." As the human fleet concentrated their fire on the weakened section, Thompson's sensors detected a new threat. The Voxari reinforcement fleet had arrived, launching boarding pods towards the human evacuation ships. "Mason, incoming boarders," Thompson warned. Major Mason's response was calm but urgent. "Copy that. All civilian vessels, form defensive pattern Delta. Combat ships, create a protective screen." Thompson could only watch as the evacuation fleet reorganized itself, bracing for the impending assault. The few remaining human combat ships moved to intercept the incoming pods, but many slipped through. As hand-to-hand combat erupted on several evacuation platforms, Thompson's attention was drawn back to the Voxari flagship. Admiral Zorn's attack group had finally breached its defenses. "Boarding team, you're clear to launch," Zorn's voice rang out. "Get in there and take out their main weapons and propulsion." Thompson held his breath as he watched the human boarding shuttles race towards the massive Voxari ship. The success of their entire mission now hinged on this high-stakes endeavor. Suddenly, a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the surface of Nexus Prime, temporarily disabling nearby ships, both Voxari and human. Thompson's transport shuddered as its systems flickered and reset. As he fought to regain control, Thompson's eyes were drawn to the Conclave ship. It had begun to move, positioning itself at the center of the battlefield. Its intentions were unclear, but Thompson knew that whatever it was about to do would change the course of the battle. With the Voxari blockade weakening but the reinforcement fleet bearing down on them, Thompson realized they had reached the critical moment. The next few minutes would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but potentially the entire war against the Voxari Empire. Gritting his teeth, Thompson aimed his transport at the heart of the Voxari formation. Whatever happened next, he was determined to give the human forces every possible advantage. As energy beams crisscrossed the void around him, he pushed the hijacked ship to its absolute limits, plunging once more into the fray. Chaos of battle. The transport's hull groaned under the strain as Thompson pushed it beyond its design limits, weaving through a hail of energy beams and debris. Suddenly, His calm crackled to life. "Thompson, this is Commander Sarah Mason. My team is aboard the Voxari flagship. We're making our way to the main engineering section." Thompson's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't known about this part of the plan, but he quickly adapted. "Copy that, Commander. What's your status?" "Heavy resistance," Sarah replied, her voice punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. "But we're pushing through. These Voxari aren't prepared for our close-quarters combat tactics." As Thompson continued his evasive maneuvers, he watched the battle unfold around him. Admiral Zorn's ships pressed their attack on the Voxari fleet, capitalizing on the confusion caused by the Conclave's interference. Major Mason's evacuation fleet darted through gaps in the enemy formation, each successful escape a small victory. The transport sensors blared a warning. Thompson's fingers flew over the controls, initiating a barrel roll that narrowly avoided a barrage of Voxari missiles. The G-forces pressed him into his seat, but his enhanced physiology allowed him to maintain consciousness and control. "All hands, brace for high-G maneuvers," Thompson called out to his crew. He pushed the hijacked ship into a series of tight turns and sudden accelerations that would have incapacitated Voxari pilots. His human crew, however, endured the punishment, their heightened durability allowing them to continue operating under extreme conditions. As Thompson's ship drew more Voxari fire, he noticed more of Mason's evacuation fleet slipping through the weakening blockade. He allowed himself a small smile before refocusing on the task at hand. His calm crackled again, this time with Major Mason's voice. "Thompson, we've got boarders on the evacuation platforms. We're holding them off, but it's getting dicey." Thompson gritted his teeth, wishing he could be in two places at once. "Copy, Major. Hang in there. We're drawing as much fire as we can up here." On the evacuation platforms, the scene was chaotic. Voxari boarding pods had breached the defensive perimeter, disgorging waves of robotic soldiers. Human defenders fought desperately, using every advantage they could muster. Major Mason's voice rang out over the din of battle. Civilians formed support teams. "I need volunteers for ammo resupply and medical assistance." To the Voxari's surprise, the human evacuees responded with remarkable efficiency. Civilians who minutes ago had been huddled in fear now moved with purpose, ferrying ammunition to the front lines and dragging wounded soldiers to makeshift medical stations. Back in space, Thompson's sensors detected a new energy signature. The Conclave ship, which had positioned itself at the center of the battlefield, began to emit a pulsating glow. "All units be advised," Thompson broadcast. "The Conclave ship is—" His warning was cut short as a massive energy wave washed over the battlefield. Thompson's ship shuddered, its systems flickering and dying. Around him, both Voxari and human vessels drifted powerless, creating an eerie stillness in the midst of what had been a furious battle. As Thompson worked to restart his ship systems, he noticed a small shuttle launching from the Conclave vessel. It moved purposefully towards the Voxari flagship, seemingly unaffected by the energy pulse. Inside the Voxari flagship, Commander Sarah Mason and her team had reached the main engineering section. They found themselves in a massive chamber filled with pulsating energy conduits and towering computer banks. "Defensive positions," Sarah ordered as Voxari guard units poured into the room. Her team scattered, using the complex machinery as cover. Sarah vaulted over a control panel, narrowly avoiding a burst of energy fire. She rolled to her feet, coming face to face with a Voxari elite guard. Without hesitation, she grabbed a loose power coupling and jammed it into the robot's central processor. The guard convulsed, sparks flying from its joints before collapsing in a heap. "Jacobs-chun, cover me," Sarah called out. "I'm going for the main reactor." As her team laid down suppressing fire, Sarah sprinted towards the pulsing core of the Voxari ship's power system. She dodged energy beams and leapt over fallen debris, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to navigate the chaos with fluid precision. Reaching the reactor controls, Sarah's fingers flew over the alien interface. She input a series of commands, overriding safety protocols and initiating a cascade failure in the ship's power grid. "Reactor destabilizing," she reported. "We need to move now." As Sarah's team fought their way back through the ship's corridors, the effects of their sabotage rippled through the Voxari fleet. Ships lost power, weapon systems failed, and coordinated attacks devolved into disarray. Admiral Zorn, quick to capitalize on the enemy's weakness, ordered an all-out assault. "All gunners, visual targeting only. Pick your shots and make them count." Human warships surged forward, their crews relying on instinct and training rather than computer assistance. Precision volleys struck critical systems on several Voxari vessels, further disrupting their formation. On the planet's surface, Dr. Voss worked frantically to stabilize the electromagnetic containment field. She had repurposed Voxari mining equipment, using it to drill a network of channels deep into Nexus Prime's crust. Rerouting excess energy through subsurface conduits, Voss reported over the comm. "It's buying us time, but the planet's becoming increasingly unstable." As if to emphasize her point, a violent tremor shook the ground. Voss stumbled, catching herself on a piece of equipment. She looked up to see fissures opening in the earth around her team's position. "All surface teams, prepare for immediate evacuation," Voss ordered. "We're out of time." As Voss and her team scrambled to load essential equipment onto repurposed Voxari mining vehicles, the planet's surface began to break apart. Massive sections of crust shifted and buckled, creating a treacherous obstacle course for the fleeing scientists. In orbit, Major Mason's evacuation fleet seized the opportunity created by the disrupted Voxari defenses. Civilian ships accelerated hard, pushing through debris fields and weaving between disabled enemy vessels. "This is our window, people," Mason broadcast to the fleet. "Full speed ahead. Don't stop for anything." As the evacuation ships made their desperate push for open space, Thompson's transport rejoined the fray. Its engines glowed white-hot, pushed far beyond their design limits as Thompson executed a series of impossible maneuvers. "Mason will clear a path," Thompson called out. "Just keep your people moving." Thompson aimed his ship at the Voxari fleet's communication relay station. It was a crucial weak point, one that could further cripple the enemy's ability to coordinate their forces. "All hands, this is going to get rough," Thompson warned his crew. He pushed the transport into a corkscrew dive, energy beams from Voxari defenders crisscrossing the space around them. The ship shuddered and groaned, hull plates buckling under the stress. Warning alarms blared throughout the cockpit, but Thompson ignored them, his focus absolute as he lined up his attack run. At the last possible moment, Thompson opened fire. The transport's weapons, never designed for this kind of assault, blazed to life. The communication relay station erupted in a ball of fire and twisted metal, taking with it the last vestiges of Voxari coordination. As Thompson pulled away from the blast, his sensors detected a new threat. The Voxari reinforcement fleet had arrived at the edge of the system, launching waves of boarding pods towards the escaping human ships. "Mason incoming boarders," Thompson warned. "A lot of them." Before Mason could respond, a new voice cut across the comm channels. It was unlike anything Thompson had ever heard, a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his mind. "Attention, warriors of humanity and the Voxari Empire," the voice intoned. "This is the Conclave. We offer you a choice." Thompson's eyes widened as he realized the significance of what was happening. The Conclave diplomats had reached the Voxari flagship's command center. Whatever they were about to say would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but potentially the entire war. As the mysterious voice continued to speak, Thompson found himself holding his breath. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the next few moments would decide everything. As the mysterious voice of the conclave continued to speak, a sudden hush fell over the battlefield. The relentless barrage of Voxari weapons fire ceased, creating an eerie stillness in the vacuum of space. Thompson, his hands still gripping the controls of his battered transport, watched in disbelief as the coordinated attacks of the Voxari fleet ground to a halt. Admiral Zorn's voice crackled over the comm, breaking the tension. All ships, regroup and form a defensive perimeter around the evacuation fleet. This may be our only chance. Thompson quickly maneuvered his hijacked Voxari ship into position, joining the human vessels as they created a protective cordon around Major Mason's civilian ships. The sudden lull in the battle allowed the human forces to catch their breath and reassess their strategy. Inside the Voxari flagship, Commander Sarah Mason and her team found themselves facing an unexpected challenge. As they fought their way back through the ship's corridors, the lights began to flicker back to life. "The automated repair systems are kicking in," Sarah's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rodriguez, reported. "We're losing our advantage." Sarah made a split-second decision. "Rodriguez, take half the team and sabotage those repair systems. We can't let them regain full power. The rest of you, with me. We're securing our exit route." As Sarah's team split up, chaos erupted on the planet's surface. Dr. Voss and her colleagues scrambled to board the last remaining evacuation shuttles as the ground beneath them heaved and buckled. "Move it, people," Voss shouted over the rumble of seismic activity. "Leave the equipment. We're out of time." The scientists piled into the shuttles, abandoning years of research as massive fissures opened in the planet's crust. As they lifted off, plumes of superheated gas and molten rock erupted into the atmosphere, turning the sky into a hellish inferno. Back in space, Thompson's transport shuddered violently, warning lights flashing across every console. "We're losing structural integrity," he called out to his crew. "We need to dock with one of our ships now." Thompson guided the failing Voxari vessel towards the nearest human evacuation platform, his expert piloting skills put to the test as he navigated through a field of debris. With a bone-jarring impact, the transport locked onto the platform's docking bay. "Everyone out," Thompson ordered, grabbing a data core containing valuable intelligence on Voxari ship systems. "Transfer to the human vessel. Move." As Thompson and his crew made their way aboard the human ship, a brilliant flash of light caught their attention. The Conclave shuttle, having completed its mission on the Voxari flagship, was returning to the main Conclave vessel. Suddenly, another energy pulse emanated from the Conclave ship, this time aimed directly at the incoming Voxari reinforcement fleet. Thompson watched in awe as the pulse washed over the enemy ships, causing widespread system failures and effectively neutralizing the threat they posed. Major Mason's voice rang out over the comm channels. "This is our window, people. All evacuation platforms, form up and interlock. We're pooling our power for one final push." The civilian ships began to move in unison, forming a tight, interlocking formation. Their combined shield generators created a unified barrier against any potential Voxari counterattack. "All engines to maximum," Mason ordered. "We're getting out of here." As the evacuation fleet began to accelerate away from Nexus Prime, the situation on the Voxari flagship grew increasingly desperate. Commander Sarah Mason and her team fought their way through waves of malfunctioning Voxari units, their behavioral controls damaged by the cascading system failures. "This way," Sarah shouted, leading her team down a maintenance corridor. "The extraction point is just ahead." They rounded a corner to find a group of Voxari robots engaged in a chaotic firefight amongst themselves. Sarah signaled her team to hold position, watching as the malfunctioning units tore each other apart. "Now's our chance," she whispered. "Move fast and stay low." The human operatives darted through the melee, using the confusion to cover their escape. They reached the extraction point just as their support shuttle docked, clambering aboard amidst a hail of errant energy blasts. As the human fleet pushed further from the disintegrating planet, Admiral Zorn detected a new threat. "Small group of Voxari ships breaking formation," he reported. "They're moving to intercept." Zorn made a difficult decision. All ships with critical damage form a rear guard, will buy the evacuation fleet the time they need. The Admiral watched as his most battle-worn vessels took up defensive positions, prepared to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Dr. Voss, now safely aboard one of the last evacuation shuttles, worked feverishly to analyze the data collected during Nexus Prime's final moments. Her eyes widened as she realized the full implications of what she was seeing. "This is Dr. Voss to all ships," she broadcast. "The planet's core is collapsing in on itself. We're looking at a potential supernova-level event. We need to clear the system immediately." As if to punctuate her warning, massive chunks of Nexus Prime's crust began to break apart, releasing waves of gravitational disturbances that buffeted the fleeing ships. Pilots struggled to maintain course, constantly adjusting to navigate through the treacherous field of planetary debris and gravitational anomalies. The pursuing Voxari ships suddenly broke off their attack, their sensors apparently detecting the imminent danger. In their wake, a small probe launched from the departing Conclave ship, positioning itself between the human fleet and the dying planet. As energy readings from Nexus Prime's core reached critical levels, the human forces found themselves in a desperate race against time. The fate of the entire evacuation effort now hinged on their ability to outrun the impending planetary explosion. Thompson, now at the helm of a human vessel, pushed the engines beyond their safe operating limits. The ship groaned under the strain as he wove through the chaos of planetary debris and gravitational eddies. "Hold together," he muttered, both to the ship and to himself. "Just a little longer." With Nexus Prime on the brink of catastrophic destruction and the human fleet still within the danger zone, the battle for survival entered its most critical phase. The next few moments would determine not only the fate of the human forces, but potentially the balance of power in the entire sector. "Galaxy," the Conclave's voice faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. For a moment, the vastness of space seemed to hold its breath. Then, chaos erupted once more. Admiral Zorn's voice crackled over the comm, breaking the spell. "All ships, divert all available power to engines and shields. We need to clear the system now." Thompson felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet as the human vessel's engines roared to life. The ship lurched forward, accelerating rapidly. Through the viewports, he watched as the rest of the fleet followed suit, their engines blazing bright against the backdrop of space. "This is Major Mason," a new voice cut in. "We're redistributing civilians to the ships with the strongest shields and fastest engines. All military vessels form a protective cordon around the civilian transports." As Thompson's ship maneuvered into position, he caught sight of a familiar Voxari shuttle weaving through the debris field. His eyes widened in recognition. "This is Commander Sarah Mason," the shuttle's pilot radioed. "We've extracted from the Voxari flagship and are en route to rendezvous with the fleet." Thompson watched in awe as Sarah expertly piloted the alien craft, pushing it to its limits. Her newly acquired knowledge of Voxari systems was evident in the shuttle's performance as it deftly avoided collisions with planetary fragments and disabled ships. On the bridge of the lead evacuation platform, Major Mason's fingers flew over the control panels as she coordinated the fleet's movements. "Dr. Voss, what's our status?" she called out. Dr. Voss's voice came through, tense but controlled. "The planet's unique composition, combined with the antimatter explosion and electromagnetic containment field, has created a gravitational anomaly. It's causing ripples through space-time. We need to clear the area before." Her words were cut off as the ship's sensors blared a warning. Major Mason's eyes snapped to the long-range scanner display. "New contacts detected," she announced. Small group of Voxari ships emerging from the far side of Nexus Prime. They're on an intercept course. Admiral Zorn's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. Those ships must have been shielded from the Conclave's energy pulse. We can't outrun them with our current formation. He paused, his heart made in tenacity. "I'm splitting the fleet. The majority of our ships will continue the evacuation. I'll lead a volunteer group to engage the Voxari and buy you time." Before Major Mason could protest, Thompson's voice came over the comm. "Admiral, I have an idea. My team and I can use what we learned about Voxari systems to exploit weaknesses in their propulsion. Give us a fighter, and we'll hit them where it hurts." Zorn nodded. "Do it, Thompson. Godspeed." As Thompson and his team prepped their modified fighter, the rest of the fleet continued its desperate push for safety. The human vessels strained against the laws of physics, their hulls groaning under the stress of acceleration. Suddenly, a bright flash erupted from the space behind them. The Conclave probe left in their wake had activated, emitting a powerful energy field that began to stabilize the space-time distortions. Major Mason's eyes lit up with realization. "All lead ships, adjust course. We're going to skirt the edge of that energy field. It should give us the boost we need to outrun the blast." As the fleet altered its trajectory, Thompson's fighter launched from the hangar bay. The small craft darted towards the approaching Voxari ships, weaving through the gravitational eddies created by the interplay of Nexus Prime's collapse and the Conclave probe's energy field. Inside the cockpit, Thompson's hands danced over the controls, his mind racing as he formulated his attack plan. "All right, team, we've got one shot at this. We'll target their propulsion systems with a modified EM pulse. It should overload their drive cores and leave them dead in space." As they closed in on the Voxari ships, Thompson caught sight of Sarah's shuttle still trailing behind the main fleet. He watched in amazement as she executed a series of complex maneuvers, using the Conclave probe's energy field as cover against enemy fire. The space around them lit up with energy discharges as the rear guard engaged the Voxari pursuers. Thompson's fighter dove into the fray, its repurposed Voxari technology allowing it to slip past the enemy's defenses. "Now!" Thompson shouted, triggering the EM pulse. The targeted Voxari ship's engine sputtered and died, its momentum carrying it into the path of its wingman. The two vessels collided in a spectacular explosion, creating a barrier of debris that forced the remaining pursuers to alter course. As Thompson's fighter rejoined the fleet, Dr. Voss's excited voice came over the comm. "Everyone, I've made a discovery. The interaction between Nexus Prime's core, the Conclave probe, and the residual antimatter effects has created a unique subspace phenomenon. If we can harness it, we might have a new form of FTL travel." Major Mason's voice cut in, tense but controlled. "Log your findings, Doctor. But right now we need to focus on survival. All ships, prepare for maximum acceleration. We're riding the wave out of here." The human fleet surged forward, riding the edge of the stabilized space-time field. Behind them, Nexus Prime entered its final death throes, massive energy bursts erupting from its core and interacting with the Conclave probe's field. Thompson gritted his teeth as his fighter bucked and shuddered, fighting to maintain formation with the fleet. Through the cockpit window, he could see the other ships jostling for position, their pilots pushing their vessels to the absolute limit. The space around them warped and twisted, gravitational eddies threatening to tear the fleet apart. But the human pilots relied on their superior reflexes and adaptability, constantly adjusting their trajectories to navigate the treacherous region. As they neared the theoretical safe distance, a blinding light erupted behind them. Nexus Prime had finally succumbed to its inevitable fate, exploding in a cataclysmic burst of energy that sent shockwaves rippling through space. The human fleet rode the leading edge of the shockwave, their ships groaning under the strain. Thompson's fighter spun wildly as it was caught in the turbulence, alarms blaring in the cockpit as he fought for control. Through the chaos, he caught a glimpse of Sarah's shuttle, still trailing behind the main fleet. She was pushing the alien craft beyond its limits, its hull glowing red-hot from the stress. As the shockwave threatened to overtake them, Dr. Voss's voice crackled over the comm once more. The subspace phenomenon is intensifying. If we can harness it, we might be able to. Her words were cut off as a brilliant flash of light engulfed the fleet. Thompson's vision went white, his body feeling as if it were being stretched and compressed simultaneously. For a moment, he thought this was the end. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sensation passed. Thompson blinked rapidly, his eyes readjusting to the darkness of space. The stars around him seemed different, unfamiliar. "This is Admiral Zorn." A shaky voice came over the comm. "All ships report in. Where the hell are we?" As the human fleet regrouped in this unknown region of space, the true implications of their desperate escape began to sink in. They had survived, but at what cost? And more importantly, where had Dr. Voss's accidental discovery taken them? The answers to these questions would have to wait. For now, the exhausted human forces could only take stock of their losses, tend to their wounded, and prepare for whatever challenges this new, uncharted region of space might hold. As the human fleet regrouped in the unfamiliar region of space, the brief moment of relief was quickly overshadowed by the realization that their ordeal was just getting started. The stars around them shimmered with an otherworldly quality, constellations unrecognizable to even the most experienced navigators. Admiral Zorn's voice crackled over the comm once more, his tone steady despite the uncertainty in his words. "All ships, maintain formation and run full diagnostics. We need to assess our situation before." He was cut off by a sudden alert from the long-range sensors. Major Mason's fingers flew over her console, her eyes widening as she processed the information. "Admiral, we've got multiple contacts approaching fast. Vox-Sari signatures." The relief that had begun to settle over the fleet evaporated instantly. Thompson, still in his battered fighter, felt his heart rate spike. How had the Vox-Sari followed them through whatever phenomenon had brought them here? As if in answer to his unspoken question, Dr. Voss's excited voice filled the comm channel. "It's not just a Vox-Sari. The energy readings. They're identical to what we encountered at Nexus Prime. We didn't just escape the explosion. We rode the wave front of a space-time displacement." The implications of her words sank in as the fleet erupted into a flurry of activity. Major Mason's voice cut through the chatter, sharp and focused. "All ships, battle stations, civilian transports, form up behind our strongest shields. We're not out of this yet." Thompson watched as the fleet realigned itself, the practiced movements of the human vessels a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just escaped. He nudged his fighter into position, noting with grim satisfaction that his team's earlier modifications were still operational. "Thompson, report status," Admiral Zorn commanded. "Fighters holding together, sir," Thompson replied, running a quick systems check. "Vox-Sari tech integration is stable. We're combat ready." "Good," Zorn nodded. "I want you and your team to lead our counterstrike. Use what you've learned about their systems. Hit them hard and fast." As Thompson acknowledged the order, he caught sight of a familiar Vox-Sari shuttle weaving through the human formation. Commander Sarah Mason's voice came over the comm, tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "This is Commander Mason. The Vox-Sari flagship's databanks contain tactical information on their fleet movements. I'm transmitting it now. It might give us an edge." Major Mason's voice followed quickly. "Data received. All ships, updating tactical displays. Prepare to exploit Vox-Sari vulnerabilities on my mark." The human fleet surged forward, riding the lingering effects of the space-time displacement. Thompson felt a surge of pride as he watched the collection of mismatched vessels move with surprising coordination, adapting to the unfamiliar stellar terrain with remarkable speed. As the Voxari ships came into visual range, Thompson noticed something odd about their formation. Admiral, the Voxari, they seemed disorganized, like they're struggling to regroup. Dr. Voss chimed in, her voice filled with realization. The space-time displacement must have affected their systems more severely than ours. Their rigid programming isn't adapting as quickly to the new environment. Admiral Zorn seized the opportunity. All ships, execute attack pattern Zeta 3. Thompson, take your team and target their lead ships. Disrupt their command structure. Thompson's fighter accelerated, leading a squadron of similarly modified vessels. They weaved through the oncoming Voxari formation, their repurposed alien technology allowing them to slip past the enemy's defenses with surprising ease. Now, Thompson shouted, triggering a series of precisely calibrated energy pulses. The lead Voxari ship's engine sputtered and died, its weapon systems going dark. Around him, his team executed similar maneuvers, sowing chaos among the enemy ranks. Back in the main fleet, Major Mason coordinated the larger assault. Human vessels darted in and out of the Voxari formation, exploiting the weaknesses identified in Sarah's stolen data. The space around them lit up with weapons fire, a deadly dance of energy beams and explosions. As the battle raged, Dr. Voss worked feverishly at her console, analyzing the lingering effects of the space-time displacement. Major, the subspace phenomenon is still active. If we can recreate the conditions from Nexus Prime, we might be able to trigger another jump. Major Mason's mind raced, weighing the risks and possibilities. Do it, Doctor. Admiral Zorn, we need to reposition the fleet. We may have a way out of here. Zorn's voice was grim but determined. Understood. All ships begin falling back to Rally Point Alpha. Rear guard, prepare to cover our withdrawal. As the human fleet began its strategic retreat, the Voxari seemed to finally shake off their disorientation. Their attacks became more coordinated, pressing hard against the human defenses. Thompson's fighters shuddered as a glancing blow from a Voxari energy weapon scorched its hull. We can't keep this up forever, Admiral, he reported, executing a tight barrel roll to avoid another blast. Hold the line, Thompson, Zorn commanded. Dr. Voss needs more time. Suddenly, a new energy signature appeared on the sensors. The Conclave probe, which had followed them through the initial displacement, began emitting a series of complex energy pulses. The space around the human fleet shimmered, the fabric of reality itself seeming to ripple. This is it, Dr. Voss shouted. The probe is stabilizing the subspace field. All ships, prepare for potential displacement. As the human fleet consolidated its position, the space before them began to warp and twist. A rift opened, swirling with otherworldly energies. Beyond it, the stars arranged themselves in yet another unfamiliar pattern. Major Mason's voice rang out, clear and decisive. All ships, set course for the rift. This is our chance. The human vessels surged forward, their engines straining as they raced towards the shimmering portal. Behind them, the Voxari fleet gave chase, their weapons fire intensifying as they realized their quarry was about to escape. Thompson's fighter, battered but still operational, took up a rear guard position. He watched as the civilian transports entered the rift one by one, disappearing in flashes of light. The military escorts followed, providing cover fire until the last moment. As his turn approached, Thompson cast one last glance at the chaos behind him. The Voxari fleet, once so orderly and implacable, now seemed frantic and desperate. The Conclave probe hovered at the edge of the battle, its purpose still a mystery. With a final burst of acceleration, Thompson's fighter plunged into the rift. The universe seemed to stretch and contort around him, a kaleidoscope of impossible colors flooding his vision. For a moment, he felt as if he were everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sensation passed. Thompson's fighter emerged on the other side of the rift, rejoining the human fleet in yet another unknown region of space. As the last of the vessels transited safely, the rift collapsed behind them, cutting off the Voxari pursuit. Admiral Zorn's voice came over the comm, a mix of relief and caution in his tone. All ships, report status. Where are we now? And more importantly, what's our next move? As the human fleet began to take stock of their new surroundings, the weight of their situation settled over them. They had escaped, yes, but to where? And what challenges awaited them in this uncharted region of the galaxy? As the human fleet took stock of their new surroundings, the brief moment of relief was shattered by the sudden realization that their ordeal was just getting started. Major Mason's voice crackled over the comm, her tone urgent and decisive. All ships, prepare for immediate evacuation through the rift. This is not a drill. I repeat, all vessels move towards the portal now. The fleet surged forward, engines flaring as they accelerated towards a shimmering tear in space-time. Civilian transports took the lead, their hulls groaning under the strain of maximum thrust. Military escorts flanked them, providing a protective screen against any potential threats. Admiral Zorn's voice cut through the chatter. Rear guard, form up on me. We'll cover the fleet's escape. Thompson, still in his battered fighter, watched as Zorn's ships broke away from the main group, positioning themselves between the fleeing fleet and the regrouping Voxari forces. The Admiral's strategy was clear. Create a buffer to ensure the civilian safe passage. As the lead ships entered the rift, the fabric of reality seemed to ripple and distort around them. Thompson's sensors went haywire, unable to process the impossible readings flooding his systems. Through the cockpit window, he saw the first transports vanish in flashes of blinding light. Suddenly, Dr. Voss's frantic voice filled the comm channel. The rift is destabilizing. We're losing our window. Thompson's heart raced as he processed the implications. If the rift collapsed before they all made it through, the remaining ships would be trapped, easy prey for the Voxari. The rear guard, led by Admiral Zorn, executed a daring maneuver. Concentrating their fire on a single point in the Voxari formation, they created a temporary gap in the enemy line. Thompson watched in awe as the human warships pushed their engines beyond safe limits, flames erupting from overworked thrusters as they burned through their fuel reserves. Thompson, get your team moving. Zorn's command crackled through the static. We'll hold them off. Acknowledging the order, Thompson pushed his hybrid fighter to its breaking point. Warning klaxons blared as systems began to fail, the ship's structure groaning under the immense stress. Small explosions peppered the hull, forcing Thompson and his crew to make split-second decisions. Jettison all non-essential components. He shouted, fingers flying over the controls. We need to shed mass. The fighter lurched as chunks of its outer hull were blown away, leaving a trail of debris in its wake. Thompson gritted his teeth, using every ounce of his piloting skill to keep the craft on course as they raced towards a rift. Ahead, the main fleet was already halfway through the portal. Thompson's sensors picked up extreme gravitational fluctuations emanating from the rift. He watched in horror as some of the more damaged ships began to break apart under the strain, their hulls crumpling like paper. Commander Sarah Mason's voice cut through the chaos. This is Commander Mason. All damaged vessels, lock onto my signal. I'm transmitting Voxari tech optimizations to your systems. It should help you survive the transit. Thompson saw Sarah's commandeered Voxari shuttle weaving through the fleet, its alien technology interfacing with struggling human ships. Vessels that had been on the verge of disintegration suddenly stabilized, their systems surging with newfound power. As they neared the rift, a massive energy wave erupted from the dying Nexus Prime. The planet's death throes threatened to overtake the remaining ships. Admiral Zorn's voice, calm despite the dire circumstances, issued one final command. Rear guard, form a barrier, divert all power to shields. The human warships aligned themselves, their combined shield strength creating a makeshift energy barrier. The wave slammed into them with devastating force, but the shield held, protecting the civilian vessels still making their way to the rift. Thompson's fighter, now more a cocoon of energy than a proper ship, hurtled towards the portal. With their engines failing, he made a desperate call. All power to structural integrity. We're going in hot. As they approached the rift, Thompson saw the Conclave ship accelerate towards them, its purpose still unclear. A powerful energy beam connected the alien vessel to the probe near the rift, temporarily stabilizing and widening the portal. The last of the human ships streamed through the opening, with Thompson's crippled fighter barely maintaining its integrity. As they entered the rift, reality seemed to stretch and contort around them. Thompson's vision swam, his sense of time and space distorting wildly. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of other ships, some intact, others breaking apart under the immense forces. The fleet's formation dissolved as vessels were pulled in different directions by the rift's unpredictable currents. As they hurtled through the space-time corridor, ship systems fluctuated wildly. Some vessels lost power entirely, while others surged with unexpected energy. Thompson fought to maintain consciousness, his body feeling as if it were being simultaneously compressed and stretched to impossible limits. The last thing Thompson saw before blackness took him was a final, massive energy surge from the Conclave ship. As the rift began to seal behind them, cutting off any possibility of return, Thompson's thoughts turned to the uncertain future that awaited them on the other side. If they survived the journey at all. As consciousness faded, Thompson's last coherent thought was a fervent hope that their risky move would lead them to safety. The disorientation reached its zenith as the human fleet hurtled through the space-time rift. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them, defying the laws of physics. For an eternal moment, every system across the fleet went dark, plunging the ships into an eerie silence broken only by the creaking of stressed metal. Then, without warning, a brilliant flash of light engulfed them. The ships burst forth from the rift, emerging into an unfamiliar star system light years from known space. As systems slowly flickered back to life, Major Mason's voice crackled over the comms, strained but resolute. All ships, report in. Status update now. One by one, the vessels responded. Miraculously, the majority of the fleet had survived the harrowing journey, though many ships bore the scars of their ordeal. Hull breaches, failing life support systems, and depleted power cores were common issues, but they were alive. Thompson's fighter, little more than a cocoon of energy when it entered the rift, rematerialized with its structural integrity barely intact. He blinked away the spots in his vision, struggling to focus on the cockpit displays. This is Thompson. We're operational. Barely. What's our situation, Major? Before Mason could respond, Dr. Voss's excited voice cut through the chatter. Major, you need to see this. The data from our transit. It's unprecedented. What is it, Doctor? Mason asked, her tone cautious. We've not only traveled through space, Voss explained, her words tumbling out in a rush, but through time as well. According to my calculations, we've arrived several decades in the future relative to our departure point. A stunned silence fell over the comm channel as the implications sank in. They were adrift not just in space, but in time as well. As the fleet regrouped and began emergency repairs, long-range sensors pinged an alert. A massive structure loomed in orbit around a nearby gas giant, its design clearly alien yet strangely familiar. Major, reported the sensor officer, I'm detecting elements of both human and Voxari technology in that station's architecture. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Mason's mind raced, weighing their options. They were damaged, low on resources, and now apparently displaced in time. The station could be their salvation or their doom. "Commander Sarah," Mason called, "I want you to lead a reconnaissance team to that station. Approach with caution, but let's see if we can make contact." Sarah acknowledged the order. Her commandeered Voxari shuttle still, the most intact vessel in the fleet. As her team approached the sprawling space station, tension mounted. Would they face hostility or salvation? To everyone's surprise, they were greeted not by weapons fire, but by a transmission. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a diverse group of beings, humans, Voxari, and even species they didn't recognize. A human woman stepped forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This is impossible," she breathed. You're them. The Nexus Prime expedition. You're alive." Sarah exchanged bewildered glances with her team. "We are," she confirmed cautiously. "And you are." The woman composed herself. "Forgive me. I'm Administrator Chun of Nexus Novice. Your arrival, it's nothing short of miraculous. Please, dock at Bay 17. There's so much to explain." As Sarah's team docked and stepped onto the station, they were met not with hostility, but with awe and joy. Beings of various species crowded the corridors, watching in amazement as the legendary heroes of Nexus Prime walked among them. Administrator Chin led them to a grand meeting hall, its walls adorned with familiar and alien symbols alike. "Nexus Novice is a neutral zone," she explained, "a center of diplomacy in this region of space. And it exists because of you." Sarah's mind reeled. "Because of us? How?" Chen's eyes shone with admiration. "Your escape through the rift became legend. It inspired a resistance movement that eventually led to the downfall of the Voxari Empire. The technology derived from Dr. Voss's research revolutionized space travel, allowing for rapid expansion across the galaxy." As Chun spoke, holographic displays came to life around them, showing the incredible changes that had occurred in the decades since their departure. The galaxy had transformed, with multiple species now coexisting and cooperating in ways they could never have imagined. "And Admiral Zorn?" Thompson asked, his voice thick with emotion. Chen's expression softened. She gestured to a grand memorial at the heart of the station, where a larger-than-life hologram of Zorn stood tall and proud. "His sacrifice is honored by all. His actions didn't just save your fleet. They reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy." As the gravity of their situation sank in, Major Mason stepped forward. "Administrator Chun, we're grateful for this welcome, but our fleet is in dire need of assistance. Many of our ships are critically damaged." Chun nodded, her expression resolute. "Of course, Major. We'll begin immediate relief efforts. Your arrival may have been unexpected, but I assure you, you're among friends here." As the human survivors began to integrate into this new future, they discovered that their greatest strength, their adaptability and tenacity, had become the cornerstone of a new galactic philosophy. The term Deathworlders, once used to dismiss humanity, was now spoken with respect and admiration across the galaxy. Thompson watched as teams of humans, Voxari, and other species worked together seamlessly to repair their battered ships. The sight of former enemies cooperating so effortlessly was almost as disorienting as the rift transit itself. As the day wore on, the survivors of the Nexus Prime expedition found themselves grappling with the monumental changes their actions had wrought. They had fled into the unknown, fighting for survival, only to emerge as the catalyst for a new age of galactic peace and cooperation. The observation deck of Nexus Novice offered a breathtaking view of this new reality. Ships of various designs and origins moved peacefully through space, a testament to the unprecedented era of cooperation they had unknowingly ushered in. Major Mason stood at the viewport, her expression a mix of awe and perseverance. The journey that had begun with a desperate flight from destruction had led to something greater than they could have ever imagined. As she watched the diverse fleet outside, a new challenge began to take shape in her mind. How to lead humanity forward in this transformed galaxy, armed with the knowledge of their pivotal role in shaping its future.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.